He put her name card beside his and left mine by the kitchen door. At my own husband's family dinner, I watched Sophia Lane slide into the seat that should have belonged to me while Evan lifted his glass and called her the woman who saved this family's image. The servers kept pushing through the swinging kitchen door behind my chair, warm air hitting the back of my neck every time it opened, and Evan looked straight at me as if he expected me to smile, swallow the humiliation, and be grateful I had been allowed in the room at all. I did smile, not because it did not hurt, because the cameras were already recording. The bill was under my family's authorization, and the restaurant he was using to embarrass me had my mother's signature hidden in its foundation papers. I turned my wedding ring once around my finger, took a clear photo of Sophia sitting beside my husband, then texted my brothers 3 words, "Come to Alder." Before dessert, Evan Harlow was the one standing outside. The first thing I saw was not Sophia's dress, it was the empty chair beside my husband. For half a second, I thought the staff had made a mistake. Evan always liked dramatic seating plans. He cared about angles, introductions, who could see him when he gave a toast, who would appear in the photographs beside him. But at every formal dinner since our wedding, my name card had been placed at his right hand. He used to make a joke about it. "My wife keeps me civilized," he would say. That night at Alder Room there was no joke. There was a cream-colored card beside his plate, written in the slanted ink script our restaurant used for private events, Sophia Lane. My card sat at a small 2-person side table near the swinging kitchen door, half hidden behind a tall arrangement of winter branches and white roses. Every time the kitchen door opened, the brass hinge squeaked and a blast of heat rolled into the dining room with the smell of butter, roasted garlic, and burned sugar. The seat was not merely bad, it was deliberate. Evan stood near the head of the long table in his dark suit, smiling at his cousins, his parents, 2 foundation donors, and Sophia. She wore a champagne satin dress with thin straps and a diamond bracelet I had seen before in a statement from our joint card. "Not our joint money, my money." Evan looked over when he felt me watching. His eyes moved from my face to the name card in my hand, then back again. He did not look guilty, he looked mildly annoyed, as if I had arrived late to a play and forgotten my line. "Claire," he said, "warm enough for the room, cold enough for me. There you are." I held up the card. "Is there a reason I'm seated by the kitchen door?" A few conversations thinned, forks paused. His mother, Margaret Harlow, turned with a smile so polished it could have cut glass. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "don't start. We had to adjust at the last minute. Sophia is helping Evan with tonight's donors. You know how these things are." I knew exactly how these things were. Sophia turned in her chair, her hair swept over one shoulder, her mouth softened into concern. "Claire, I told Evan I didn't need to sit here, I really did. But he insisted. He said the donors needed to hear from me about the campaign." The campaign, the Harlow Legacy Foundation's winter campaign, had been funded by a transfer I approved 6 weeks earlier. The donor dinner was being hosted at Alder Room because Evan had asked me, with his hands on my shoulders in our kitchen, to help him look stable after a sponsor pulled out. He had not mentioned giving my seat to another woman. Evan came toward me. He did not touch me. He knew better when witnesses were around. "Can we not make this a scene?" he murmured. "I asked a question, and I gave you the answer." His smile stayed on for the room, his voice lowered. "Sophia's been carrying the public-facing side. You hate these dinners anyway." "I hate being used as a checkbook and then hidden by the kitchen." His jaw tightened. "That is exactly the kind of comment I'm asking you not to make, because it's untrue, because it's embarrassing." I looked past him at Sophia. She lowered her eyes, but not fast enough to hide the flash of satisfaction. Margaret lifted her water glass and gave her husband Richard a look that said, "Fix this before people notice." Richard Harlow did what he had done for most of my marriage. He looked down at his plate and said nothing. One of Evan's cousins, Blair, laughed too loudly. "Claire, honestly, the kitchen seat is probably the best one. You'll get first access to dessert." A few people chuckled. It was not cruel enough to be called cruelty by people who liked soft words. That was how the Harlows survived. They made humiliation sound like etiquette. Evan leaned closer. "Sit down." 2 words, not please, not I'm sorry, just sit down. A younger version of me might have stood there with my throat burning, trying to shame him into remembering I was his wife. A more hopeful version of me might have asked him to step into the hallway. A desperate version of me might have taken the side chair and convinced herself that marriage required patience. But I had already seen the bracelet and the donors and my card by the kitchen door, so I smiled. It made Evan relax, only slightly, but enough for me to notice. He thought the smile meant surrender. "Of course," I said. I walked to the small table, A server tried to pull out my chair and looked mortified when the kitchen door bumped the back of it. I touched his sleeve gently. "It's all right," I said. "Would you mind leaving the door as it is?" His brows flickered. I'd like the camera above the service station to have a clear line." His eyes widened, then he gave the smallest nod. All the room staff were trained never to react, but they knew who I was, not because I advertised it, because my mother's portrait hung in the private office upstairs. I sat. The chair legs scraped the floor. The sound drew more attention than I intended. Evan's mouth flattened, but he returned to his seat. Sophia slid her fingers around her wine glass. "You're so gracious, Claire." "I try." The kitchen door opened again. A server passed behind me with a tray of oysters. Evan began his toast as if nothing had happened. "To family," he said, raising his glass. That almost made me laugh. "To loyalty," Margaret added. That did make my fingers go still. Evan looked directly at Sophia when he said, "And to the people who stand beside us when it matters." The room answered with a gentle chorus of agreement. Glasses lifted. Sophia's bracelet caught the chandelier light and threw it back at me in sharp white flashes. I took out my phone under the table first. I photographed my name card by the kitchen door, then Sophia's card beside Evan, then the bracelet, then the room, then I opened the Alder Group authorization portal. The event was listed under Harlow Legacy Foundation. Payment guaranteed through my personal family member account. Evan did not have permanent authorization. He had temporary use because I had approved it. Temporary meant revocable. The bill had not closed. Dessert had not been served. I opened my messages and sent one text to our family group chat. "Come to Alder." Miles answered first. "Are you safe?" I looked up. Evan was laughing at something Sophia said. His hand rested on the back of her chair, not touching her shoulder. "Not yet. Just close enough to make the room understand what he wanted them to understand." I typed yes. Owen replied, "What happened?" I sent the picture of my seat. Theo replied with one word, "Coming." Miles sent, "Do you want us quiet or visible?" My thumb hovered for 1 second. Visible. At the main table, Margaret was telling Sophia, "You must come to Palm Beach with us in March." Claire never enjoys those things. She likes her quiet little routines. "I wouldn't want to intrude," Sophia said. "Evan did not say you would be intruding," he said. "We'll talk." I placed my phone face down and picked up my fork. The first course was served, a beet salad with goat cheese mousse and candied walnuts. My mother had hated beet salad. She used to say rich people ate punishment if someone plated it beautifully enough. I could hear her voice so clearly that my chest tightened. A server refilled my water. He bent slightly and whispered, "Ms. Winslow, Nora has been notified." Not Mrs. Harlow, Ms. Winslow. For the first time that night, my smile became real. "Thank you." Evan saw the exchange. His eyes narrowed. He excused himself from Sophia and crossed the room. He bent at my table, hand braced on the empty chair across from me, pretending intimacy for anyone watching. "Why is Nora involved?" he asked. Nora Bell managed Alder Room. She had worked for my mother for 14 years. She could remove a billionaire from the premises with the same calm expression she used to recommend a wine pairing. "I didn't involve her," I said. "The staff did." "Why?" "Probably because your wife is sitting by a kitchen door at an event billed to her account." His nostrils flared. "Stop saying it like that. How would you prefer I say it?" "I would prefer you to remember that tonight is important." "To whom?" "To the family." "There it is." He straightened. "I'm not doing this here." "No," I said. "You did this here. I'm just sitting where you put me." A flush climbed his neck for 1 second. I saw the boy he had probably been at 21, handsome and furious when a door did not open fast enough. "You think your money gives you the right to humiliate me?" he asked. I looked around the room. "No, I think your behavior gave me that right. My money only rented the room." His face hardened. "Be careful, Claire." I leaned back as the kitchen door swung open again, nearly touching my shoulder. "I am being very careful." He stared at me, then he returned to Sophia. I watched him sit. Sophia murmured something. He shook his head, annoyed now, but still confident that was Evan's mistake. He believed every conflict could be managed if dessert arrived on time and everyone had enough wine. The second course came, then the main course. Wine moved faster, laughter grew louder. At 8:36 p.m. the dining room doors opened. My brothers did not rush in, they did not shout, they did not make a scene for Evan to use against me later. Miles came first, tall, calm, in a charcoal overcoat. Owen followed with his glasses still on, phone in hand, probably already reading the account logs. Theo came last, broad-shouldered and angry enough that 3 servers noticed. Evan stood, the whole table turned. "Claire," he said very softly, "what did you do?" I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Margaret's face went pale. Why are the Winslow boys here? Theo smiled without warmth. Good evening to you too, Mrs. Harlow. Miles walked to my table, not Evan's. He bent and kissed my cheek. Do you want to leave? Not yet, I said. Owen glanced at the kitchen door behind my chair. His expression did not change, but his eyes went flat. Understood. Nora entered from the side hall in a black suit, tablet in hand. Mr. Harlow, she said. May I have a word? Evan laughed once. Nora, this is not the time. I'm afraid it is. Sophia placed a hand on his sleeve. Evan, he shook her off too quickly. This is a private family dinner. Nora's voice remained even. It is a private event hosted by Alder Room under a temporary authorization from Ms. Claire Winslow. That authorization has been withdrawn. The room went so quiet I heard the kitchen printer spit out a ticket. Margaret stood. Withdrawn? Claire, don't be childish. I looked at her. I'm not. Evan took one step toward me. Theo took one step toward Evan. Miles lifted a hand and Theo stopped. That mattered. My brothers were not there to rescue me. They were there because I had called. They would move when I asked. Evan understood that a second too late. Nora continued. Because the payment guarantee has been revoked before the event close. Alder Room requires immediate settlement from Mr. Harlow or the Harlow Legacy Foundation. Richard finally spoke. How much? Owen looked at his phone. With the private room fee, cellar selection, service charge, floral installation, security extension, and donor tasting menu. $48,612. Blair choked on wine. Evan's eyes cut to me. You're not serious. I am. This is my family. I noticed. Sophia whispered. Evan, just pay it. Something in the way she said it revealed she had never had to think about whether Evan could. He reached for his phone. He tapped. His face changed. Owen said. The joint card won't work. Claire froze it at 8:22. Evan looked up slowly. Miles said. And your foundation card appears to require dual approval. For charges over $10,000, Claire is no longer approving. Margaret's lips parted. Claire, stop this right now. I stood for 3 years. I had stood beside Evan at dinners like that. I had remembered his donors' children's names. I had sent flowers to his mother's friends. I had smoothed over his temper, his late payments, his forgotten anniversaries, his public mistakes. I had made his family look warm, solvent, connected and generous, and he had put me by the kitchen door. No, I said. Evan's voice dropped. Do not embarrass me in front of these people. I looked at Sophia in my seat. You did that yourself. Nora turned to Evan. Mr. Harlow, until payment is settled, we must ask you to step outside the dining room while we resolve the account. You're throwing me out of my own dinner. No, I said, out of mine. The words landed harder than shouting would have. 2 security staff appeared at the entrance. They wore dark suits and blank expressions. Alder Room security specialized in wealthy people who believed consequences were for staff. Evan looked around the table, searching for rescue. His donors avoided his eyes. His cousins stared at their plates. Richard looked sick. Margaret looked furious. But fury could not pay the bill. Sophia stayed seated 1 second too long. Then she stood and reached for her clutch. The bracelet flashed again. Leave it, I said. She froze. Excuse me. The bracelet, if Evan bought it, he can prove it with his own card. If it came from mine, my attorney will discuss it with you. Her face drained of color. Evan took another step. Claire, I nodded to Theo. He did not touch Evan. He only moved close enough to make the distance clear. Nora said, Mr. Harlow. Evan buttoned his jacket with shaking fingers. The gesture was pure pride. Useless and sad, he walked toward the doors. Sophia followed, but not beside him now. Behind him, the dessert course had not arrived. As he passed me, Evan stopped. His voice was low enough that only I heard. You just started a war. I looked at the man I had married, the man who thought humiliation was acceptable as long as he served it with wine, the man who still believed I wanted a place at his table. No, I said, I left one. The dining room doors closed behind him. For the first time that night, the kitchen door opened and did not touch my chair. Evan did not wait quietly outside. I could hear him through the paneled dining room doors, not every word, but enough. His voice rose, dropped, rose again. Nora's voice never rose at all. That was the difference between people who owned power and people who performed it. At the table, nobody moved. The main course sat half-eaten under cooling sauce. Sophia's chair was empty. The napkin she had placed on her lap had fallen to the floor in a pale satin heap, like something shed by a snake. Margaret gripped the back of her chair. Claire, she said, each syllable stiff with warning, this has gone far enough. I looked at her. Has it? This is a misunderstanding. No, a misunderstanding is when a name card is placed at the wrong setting. Evan changed mine. You don't know that. I turned to Nora. Do we know that? Nora held her tablet. Yes. A small sound passed around the table. Not shock exactly, discomfort. People dislike proof because it removes the soft places where excuses can hide. Margaret's eyes sharpened. You had staff spy on your husband. I had cameras in a restaurant. This is beneath you. I almost smiled. So was the kitchen door. Richard rubbed a hand over his mouth. He looked older than he had at the beginning of dinner, without Evan in the room, without Sophia glittering beside him. The whole Harlow table seemed smaller. Miles pulled out the chair across from mine and sat down, not at the head, not beside Evan's abandoned place, across from me at my little side table by the kitchen door. The gesture was so simple it nearly broke me. Owen took the seat beside him. Theo remained standing behind me, arms folded. Blair whispered to her husband, "Are we allowed to leave?" Theo looked at her. "Nobody's locked in, Blair." She flinched. Good. The doors opened. Evan came back in, but only 2 steps. Security remained behind him. His face was controlled again, which meant he had found a new strategy. "Claire," he said, "can we speak privately?" I looked at Nora. "Has the bill been settled?" Evan's jaw flexed. "That's not the point. It is for the restaurant. Don't be petty." Owen glanced at his phone. Interesting word for $48,000. Evan ignored him. "Claire, come outside." "No, this is our marriage." "Then you should not have turned it into table placement." Margaret moved toward him. "Evan, tell her you're sorry." He shot his mother a look. She stopped. That look told me more than an apology would have. Evan was not sorry. He was humiliated that his mother had suggested submission in public. He looked back at me. "I made a judgment call about seating. Sophia was helping with donor engagement. You don't enjoy public speaking. I thought you'd prefer a quieter spot." The lie was so smooth I could almost admire it. "A quieter spot," I repeated, "by the kitchen door." "Don't twist my words." "You twisted my chair." Theo made a sound that might have been a laugh. Miles did not move, but I saw his mouth tighten. Evan looked at my brothers. "This is between my wife and me," Miles said. "Then talk to your wife with respect." Evan's eyes flashed. "I don't need a lecture from the Winslow family. You needed our account number." Owen said. That landed. Richard closed his eyes. Evan turned on me. "You told them everything?" "No," I said, "just where I was sitting." For the first time that night, uncertainty crossed his face. He had expected me to come armed with emotion. He had not expected me to come armed with restraint. Nora stepped forward. "Mr. Harlow, if you cannot provide payment, we can arrange a promissory agreement with personal identification and a deposit tonight." "Fine," Evan snapped. "Send it to my office. We require it before dessert service continues." The word dessert moved through the room like a match. Blair's husband muttered, "Jesus." Sophia appeared behind Evan in the hallway. Her face had been rearranged into softness. She looked at me as if we were 2 women trapped in an unfortunate social accident. "Claire," she said, "please don't punish everyone because you're upset with me." I stood slowly. "You think this is about you?" Her eyes flicked to Evan. There it was. She wanted it to be about her. If it was about jealousy, she could win. She could be the delicate woman caught in the crossfire. Evan could defend her. Margaret could call me insecure. The donors could shake their heads at a wife who could not handle another woman being useful. But this was not about jealousy, it was about structure. I took my purse from the chair. "Nora, please box the dessert for the staff." Nora nodded. "Of course." Margaret gasped. "You can't be serious. This is my family dinner. It was charged to my account. Because you are part of this family." "No," I said, and felt the truth settle into me. As I spoke it, I was the account this family used. Evan's face darkened. "That is enough." "It is." I walked toward the doors. My brothers followed. Nobody stopped us. That might have been the saddest part. The Harlows had so much to say when I sat quietly, and nothing when I moved. Evan stepped into my path in the hallway. Up close, I could see the tiny details that had once made him familiar: the faint scar near his chin from a college lacrosse accident, the crease between his brows, the scent of cedar cologne I had bought him last Christmas. He said, "You are going to regret this." I said, "Which part, standing up or leaving?" "You embarrassed me in front of donors. You embarrassed me in front of your family." "That was a seating issue. It was a marriage issue." Sophia hovered behind him. "Maybe tonight isn't the time." I looked at her bracelet. "Take it off." Her hand went to her wrist. "This was a gift." "Then you won't mind proving who paid for it?" Evan snapped. "Leave her alone." The old Claire would have focused on that, on the protective instinct, on the way he defended Sophia faster than he had ever defended me. The new Claire noticed something better. He did not say he paid for it. Miles stepped beside me. Claire, car is ready. Evan's eyes moved to my brother. You people love making everything about money. Miles tilted his head. No, we just notice when someone spends it. I touched Miles's sleeve. I'll handle it. He stepped back at once. I looked at Evan. You have until noon tomorrow to remove your access from all Alder Group accounts. I'll have Jillian send formal notice in the morning. Jillian, his mouth tightened. You called a lawyer. I called my brothers. The lawyer was always next. His expression shifted. There it was again, that flash of surprise. He truly had believed I would cry in the car, wait for him to come home, and let him decide whether the injury had been real. You're not thinking clearly, he said. I almost laughed. You should hope I am not. If I start thinking clearly, I'll check every receipt. Sophia's face changed small fast, but I saw it, so did Owen. He looked up from his phone. That's probably wise. Evan turned sharply toward Sophia. What? She shook her head. Nothing. But it was not nothing outside. The December air hit my face, cold, clean, almost violent after the warm dining room. The Alder Room sign glowed above the entrance, gold letters against black stone. My mother had chosen that sign. She had hated anything flashy. She believed wealth should enter a room quietly and leave fingerprints only. Where necessary, I stood under her sign and finally let myself breathe. Behind us, through the glass, I saw Evan at the host stand arguing with Nora. Sophia stood a little apart now, scrolling her phone. Margaret had come into the hallway, one hand pressed to her chest, performing distress for anyone still watching. Theo muttered, I can go back in. No, I wouldn't hit him. That's not the reassurance you think it is. He gave me a reluctant smile. Miles opened the car door. Where do you want to go? I looked at the street. For 3 years the answer would have been home, even angry, even hurt. I would have gone back to the house I shared with Evan. I would have waited in our kitchen. I would have tried to make him understand why I had been humiliated. But tonight, I did not want to explain my pain to the person who arranged it. Your place, I said, for an hour, then I need to go home and get the files from the study. Owen looked up. Which files? The prenup, the trust addendum, the foundation donations, anything with my signature. Miles's gaze sharpened. You think there's more? I know there's more. Theo opened the other door. Because of the bracelet. Because Sophia looked scared when I mentioned receipts. Owen's fingers moved across his screen. I'll pull the Alder charges first, then card statements, then foundation reimbursements. Miles waited until I was seated before he closed the door. Through the window, I saw Evan push out of the restaurant. He spotted me in the car and came fast. Theo moved between him and the curb. I could not hear everything through the glass, but I saw Evan point toward me. Theo did not move. Evan tried to step around him. Miles joined Theo, not threatening, just present. Evan shouted something. I rolled the window down 3 inches. His voice cut through the cold. Claire, get out of the car. No, you are my wife. For now. His face froze. Even Sophia, behind him on the sidewalk, went still. Those 2 words did what the unpaid bill had not. They reached the part of him that had never believed I would leave. For now, he repeated. I looked at the man standing outside the restaurant where he had tried to make me small. You heard me. Then I rolled the window up. The car pulled away before dessert. In the rearview mirror, Evan Harlow stood under my mother's sign with no coat, no paid bill, and no seat left to return to. My phone buzzed in my lap. Unknown number. I opened it. A photo appeared. Sophia's wrist, the bracelet removed, lying on a marble sink under it. One message. You have no idea what he promised me. I did not cry until I saw my own handwriting. Not on a love note, not on an anniversary card, not on one of those old grocery lists where Evan used to add ridiculous things like emergency chocolate or wife bait. I cried when I opened the file cabinet in our home office and found a folder labeled Claire Approvals. The handwriting on the tab was mine. I had written it 2 years ago during tax season when Evan had joked that my paperwork habits were sexier than therapy. I had laughed then. I had been sitting cross-legged on the floor in one of his old shirts, sorting receipts while he leaned against the desk and told me he loved how safe I made everything feel. Now the folder was twice as thick as it should have been. Miles stood at the office door. Do you want me in here? I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand before turning around. Yes. He entered quietly. Owen was downstairs at the dining table with his laptop and 3 screens already building a timeline. Theo had gone room to room checking that Evan was not there. opening closets with the controlled fury of a man who wanted to find an intruder and was disappointed by safety. The house was too clean. That was my first thought when we came in, the marble island polished, the sofa pillows aligned, the flowers in the entry hall fresh. Evan had ordered white lilies. I hated white lilies, they smelled like funeral homes and expensive apologies. Miles looked at the folder. What is it? Approvals, transfers, donations, event guarantees. I swallowed. Things I signed. He did not reach for it. May I? I handed it to him. He opened the folder and began reading. The silence changed after the first few pages. Miles had a way of becoming still when he was angry, not frozen, still, like a door locking from the inside. What? I asked. He turned one paper toward me. Did you approve a consulting retainer for Lane Public Strategy? I stared at the page. Lane, Sophia Lane. The amount was $15,000 a month. No, it has your electronic approval. I didn't approve that. Did Evan have access to your tablet? I laughed once, dry and ugly. He had access to everything. He was my husband. Miles said nothing. That was mercy. I read the approval again. It was routed through Harlow Legacy Foundation as a donor relations expense. The digital signature looked like mine because it was mine in a technical sense. My stored authorization had been used. The question was whether I had clicked it. I had not. I remembered the month. Evan had been frantic about the winter campaign. He had asked me to log into the foundation portal from his laptop because his account was glitching. I had done it while making coffee. He had kissed my temple and said, "You're saving my life." Maybe that was the problem. Theo appeared in the doorway holding a navy garment bag. Is this his? I looked. No, that's Sophia's brand. He dropped it as if it had burned him. In your guest room closet. The guest room, the room where I had made up fresh sheets for Evan's cousin last Thanksgiving. The room where I kept my mother's quilt folded in the cedar chest. The room I had not checked in weeks because Evan said the vac vent was making a noise and he would handle it. I walked past Theo. Claire, Miles said, "I'm fine." I was not fine, but I was moving, and sometimes movement was the only safe form of not being fine. The guest room smelled faintly of perfume, not mine, sweeter, powder and orange blossom. The closet door was open. Inside, behind winter coats and storage boxes, were 2 dresses, a pair of nude heels, a silk scarf and a small makeup bag. Not much. Enough. Theo stood in the hallway, breathing hard. I opened the makeup bag. Lipstick, concealer, a travel toothbrush, a hotel keycard from 2 months earlier. Miles took a photo of everything. I picked up the scarf. I had seen Sophia wear it in a picture Margaret posted from a foundation planning brunch. Evan had told me the brunch was at his parents' house. I had stayed home with a migraine and sent a floral centerpiece. I had sent flowers to a table where my husband sat with the woman whose toothbrush was in my guest room. My phone rang. Evan. Miles looked at the screen. You don't have to answer. Yes, I said. I do. I put it on speaker. Evan's voice came through tight and furious. Where are you? In the house. A beat. With them. Yes. You brought your brothers into our home. Our home has Sophia's clothes in the guest room. Silence. Theo stepped closer to the phone like he could punch sound. Evan recovered quickly. She stayed one night after a late foundation meeting. Margaret was here. You were in Boston. That's the lie you're choosing. It's the truth. Her toothbrush is here. For God's sake, Claire, you're acting like a detective in your own marriage. No, I said, I'm acting like the woman who found another woman's belongings in her house. Our house. Check the deed. Another silence. This one pleased me. When Evan and I married, I bought the house because his credit was tangled in family business debt he called temporary. We agreed his name would not be on the title until the refinancing was clean. It never became clean. He stopped bringing it up after the 2nd year, probably because he realized living in my house while calling it ours worked better for him. His voice lowered. Don't make this ugly. You seated me by a kitchen door. That again. Yes, Evan, that again. It was not a napkin color. It was not a parking mistake. It was the moment you publicly showed me where you think I belong. You're being dramatic, and you're being predictable. He exhaled sharply. Listen to me. Whatever you think you found, don't touch anything until I get there. Miles met my eyes. I said, no, I'm serious, Claire. So am I. If you remove documents from this house, I'll consider that theft of my own files. Foundation materials are confidential. There it is, I said. What? That's what you're scared about. He did not answer fast enough. Miles wrote something on his phone and turned it toward me. Ask about debt confirmation. I opened the desk drawer. Under warranty papers, take-out menus, and an old charger. I had found a packet clipped with a silver binder. It looked official, too official to be accidental. Personal guarantee and marital debt acknowledgement. My name was typed under Evans, my signature line was blank, my skin went cold. Evan, I said, keeping my voice flat. Why is there a debt acknowledgement in the study? He swore under his breath. You're going through my private files, in my house. That was a draft. For what? A contingency. For what? Business. What business? He snapped. The kind you never wanted to understand until you decided to ruin me in front of everyone. There it was again, ruin me, not hurt me, not leave me, ruin me. Evan did not hear marriage ending, he heard funding ending. I looked at Miles, then at the document. How much debt? I asked. Evan said nothing. How much? It's not your concern. My name is on the draft. It would only matter if you signed. Did you plan to ask me? He laughed bitterly. I planned to discuss it with my wife before she invited her brothers to drag me out of dinner. You mean before I stopped being useful? His voice changed, softer now, dangerous in a different way. Claire, baby, listen to me. My stomach turned. He had not called me baby in 6 months. We had a bad night, he said. A humiliating one, I understand that. But you're spiraling. You're standing in our house with men who already hate me. Digging through documents you don't understand, listening to your worst fears. Put the papers down, tell them to leave, we'll talk like husband and wife. I looked at Sophia's toothbrush. No, his softness vanished. Then you leave me no choice. What choice? I'll come home. Theo smiled. Please do. Miles shot him a look. I said into the phone, if you come here tonight, you'll speak to my attorney or the police, your choice. You wouldn't. I withdrew a dinner authorization before dessert update. Your expectations. I ended the call, my hand shook after the screen went dark. I hated that. I hated that my body still responded to him as if he could decide the temperature of the room. Miles took the phone gently from me and placed it on the bed. Breathe. I inhaled. The perfume in the room made me nauseous. Owen called from downstairs. Claire, you need to see this. We went down. He had documents spread across the dining table. His laptop showed a spreadsheet filled with highlighted lines. I pulled 24 months of charges from the joint card, he said. Alder events, luxury retail, hotel bars, spa services, image consulting, travel upgrades. Some are Evan, some are Margaret. A very large number connect to Sophia. I sat slowly. How large? Conservatively, $187,000. Theo said, I'm sorry, what? Owen pointed to a line. Bracelet, $12,400, purchased 3 days before tonight's dinner. I closed my eyes, not because of the money, because 3 days ago, Evan had kissed my cheek before leaving for work and asked if I needed anything from downtown. I had said no. He had said, you never ask for enough. Then he bought Sophia diamonds with my card. Owen continued. There are also foundation reimbursements labeled public relations support. Lane Public Strategy has received at least $210,000 in the past year, Miles said, from donor funds, some bridge transfers from Claire's approved support line. I opened my eyes. He used my foundation support to pay her. Owen's expression softened. It looks that way. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Evan. Do not force me to protect myself. A second message appeared. If you turn my family against me, I will tell everyone how unstable you've been since your mother died. For a moment, the room blurred. My mother had died 4 years earlier after a stroke so sudden I still sometimes reached for my phone to call her before remembering the silence. Evan had met me 6 months later. He held me when I cried in grocery store aisles because I saw her favorite tea. He knew exactly where to put the knife. I showed Miles the message. His face became very still. Theo said, that's it. No, I said. They looked at me. I stood, picked up the debt acknowledgement, Sophia's hotel key card and the bracelet receipt Owen had printed. My hands had stopped shaking. That is not it, I said. That is evidence. Miles nodded once. What do you want? I looked around the dining room of the house I had tried to make into a marriage. The flowers, the polished table, the framed wedding photo on the sideboard where Evan held my hand and smiled like a man who knew what vows meant. I want locks changed tomorrow, I said. I want Gillian at 9. I want every authorization pulled by noon. I want the foundation audited. And I want a complete list of everything Sophia Lane touched. Owen closed his laptop. Done. Theo looked almost relieved to have orders. And Evan, I picked up my wedding photo and laid it face down. Evan can learn what a locked door feels like. At 11:48 p.m. a car pulled into the driveway, headlights washed across the dining room wall. Theo moved first. Miles stopped him with one hand. I looked through the window. Evan stepped out of the car. Sophia stepped out after him, and behind them, Margaret Harlow climbed from the back seat holding a spare key I had given her our first Christmas married. The spare key did not work. I watched Margaret Harlow push it into the lock, twist, frown, pull it out and try again as if metal could be shamed into obedience. Beside her, Evan stood with his hands in his coat pockets, shoulders tight against the cold. Sophia remained near the car, arms folded, her face pale beneath the porch light. She had put the bracelet back on. That almost impressed me. Margaret knocked, not a polite knock, a mother-in-law knock, the kind that believed walls were temporary and boundaries were rude. "Claire," she called, "open this door." Theo looked at me. "Say the word." "No." Miles stood beside the entry table, phone in hand. "Police non-emergency is ready if they attempt entry." Owen had already scanned the debt document and uploaded it to the shared legal folder. He looked calmer now that the problem had become numbers. Numbers did not manipulate grief. They either matched or they did not. Evan knocked next. "Claire, let us in." I went to the door but I did not open it. The new deadbolt had been installed by the security contractor at 10:37 p.m. I had not known locks could be changed so quickly. Then again, I had never asked my family to move quickly for me before. "I'm not speaking with you tonight," I said through the door. Margaret's voice sharpened. "This is absurd. You changed the locks on your husband, on my house." Evan hit the door with his palm. "Stop saying that. Stop needing to hear it." Sophia stepped closer. Her voice was small, trembling at the edges. "Claire, I know you're hurt, but this is frightening. Evan shouldn't be locked out of his own home." I leaned my forehead against the inside of the door and almost laughed. There she was, the woman with her toothbrush in my guest room, worried about frightening boundaries. "Tell Sophia she can collect her things through my attorney," I said. Evan's voice dropped. "You went into the guest room?" "Yes, that was private. So is marriage," Margaret said. "Claire, open the door before the neighbors see." There it was. Not open the door because we love you, not open because we need to talk. Open before people see that the Harlows had been placed. Outside I turned away. "Claire," Evan shouted. Miles stepped closer to the door. "Evan, leave the property. This is between me and my wife. She told you to leave." "I don't answer to you. You do answer to trespass law." Silence followed. Then Margaret hissed something I could not catch. Sophia said, "Evan, maybe we should go." Her voice had changed, less wounded now, more calculating. She knew cameras might catch this too. Evan said, "This isn't over." I opened the door 1 inch. Miles moved, but I raised my hand. Evan froze at the sight of me through the narrow gap. For a second, his anger faltered. Maybe I looked different. Maybe he expected tears. Maybe the woman who opened the door with a deadbolt chain between them was not the wife he knew how to manage. "You're right," I said. "It isn't over." His eyes dropped to the chain. I closed the door. The next morning, I sat in Gillian Price's office at 8:57 with coffee I had not tasted and a stack of documents in front of me. Gillian was not warm. That was why I liked her. Warmth was lovely in friends and dangerous in lawyers. Gillian dealt in verbs. "Withdraw," she said, sorting papers. "Freeze, notify, preserve, audit, file." Theo whispered, "I like her." Gillian ignored him. "Claire, I need you to confirm what you want done today, not what your brothers want. Not what Evan deserves, what you want." I looked at the list. Revoke Alder Group event authorization for Evan Harlow, Harlow Legacy Foundation and all associated parties. Freeze joint credit card. Pending review. Terminate shared household discretionary account. Remove Evan's access to personal digital approvals. Notify Foundation Board of potential unauthorized use of Claire Winslow's stored approval credentials. Preserve all surveillance footage from Alder Room dinner. Prepare separation notice. Prepare divorce petition. The last line seemed to lift off the page. Divorce petition. I had thought the word would feel like a cliff. Instead it felt like a locked door from the inside. "Do it," I said. Gillian held my gaze for a moment. "All of it, all of it." Miles exhaled quietly beside me. Gillian nodded. "Then we begin." By noon, Evan's life began making a sound I had never heard before. Decline at 11:14. He called because the family driver service refused to pick up Margaret for her salon appointment at 11:36. Margaret called because her Alder Club lunch reservation had disappeared. At 11:52, Sophia called from an unknown number. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. "Claire, this is humiliating. My card was declined at Vivant because Evan said the styling account was still active. You can't just cut people off without warning. This affects my professional reputation." I saved the voicemail at 12:05. Evan texted, "You froze the card. Are you insane?" At 12:07, My mother is stranded at 12:09. Sophia had a client appointment at 12:11. Pick up the phone at 12:12. You're proving exactly what I said about you. I read the messages in Gillian's conference room while Owen projected a spreadsheet onto the wall. Look here, he said. The styling account Sophia mentioned, it's under Harlow Foundation event preparation, but the billing contact is Evan's personal email. Claire's support line reimbursed the charges. Gillian wrote something down, useful. I stared at the screen. She called it her professional reputation. She would, Owen said. You were funding it. A strange calm moved through me, the kind that comes when pain becomes organized. My phone rang again. Evan. Gillian looked at me. You may answer, but keep it factual. I put it on speaker. Evan did not say hello. Turn the accounts back on. No, you're hurting people who have nothing to do with our disagreement. Our disagreement is that you used my money to seat another woman beside you and me by a kitchen. Our disagreement is that you humiliated my family over a chair. I looked at Gillian. She made a small note. Evan, I said, your family has used my personal accounts, my club privileges, my event authorization, and my discretionary support line for years. That ended today. Silence, then a laugh, cold, dismissive. You don't even know what half of those things are. I know enough to revoke them. You're being coached. My lawyer is in the room. He sucked in a breath. Of course she is. So be careful. His voice changed again, soft. Evan, the Evan who used to kneel beside my side of the bed when I had nightmares after my mother died. Claire, listen, I made a mistake last night, a stupid, public mistake. I can say that. I should not have let Sophia sit there. I should have checked the seating. I was under pressure. My mother was in my ear. Donors were watching. I handled it badly. My throat tightened despite myself. Not because I believed him, because part of me still wanted to. Then he said, but freezing accounts, calling lawyers, making me look like a criminal, that's not you. There it was, the hook beneath the apology. Gillian slid a notepad toward me. Do not defend yourself, ask questions, I said. Did you authorize Sophia Lane's retainer using my stored approval? He went silent. Did you purchase her bracelet on the joint card? No answer. Did you draft a debt acknowledgement with my name on it? Those are complicated issues. No, I said, they're yes or no issues. His voice hardened. You want to talk legal? Fine. You cut off marital funds without notice. You locked me out of the house. You interfered with foundation operations. You embarrassed donors. You think that looks good? Gillian wrote faster. I said, thank you for confirming you see my money as foundation operations. He cursed. I ended the call. Theo looked delighted. Can we make that a ringtone? No. Gillian tapped her pen. He will escalate. Expect family pressure first, then reputation pressure. He needs you emotional because the documents are not good for him. What about Sophia? Gillian's mouth curved slightly. Sophia will follow the money right now. That is still Evan in her mind. When she realizes Evan was following your money, she will move. She was right. At 2:18 p.m. Sophia posted a photo online, a black and white shot of a restaurant table, her hand without the bracelet, a wine glass. The caption read, some women mistake control for love. I hope every person trapped in a financially abusive marriage finds courage. She did not name me. She did not need to. By 3:00, 3 Harlow cousins had liked it. By 3:40, Blair reposted it with a broken heart emoji. By 4:15, Margaret sent me a message. You have embarrassed this family enough. If you continue, I will personally make sure everyone knows the truth about how unstable you are. I read it twice, then I forwarded it to Gillian. Evidence. Gillian replied at 5:03. Evan came to the house again. This time he came alone. I saw him on the security camera standing at the door, hair windblown, tie loosened. He looked tired. That should not have mattered. It did. He rang once. I answered through the camera speaker. What do you want? He looked up at the camera. My clothes. I'll have them packed. I want to talk to you. You can talk to my lawyer, Claire. His voice cracked just enough. Please. I closed my eyes. Behind me the house was quiet. My brothers had left to give me space after I insisted. Gillian's office had sent formal notices. The locks were changed. The accounts were frozen. I was alone in the house. But for the first time, alone did not mean unprotected. I opened the inner door but kept the storm door locked. Evan stood on the porch. You changed the locks. Yes. You froze my card. Yes. You cancelled my mother's driver. I cancelled my account. Your mother can hire a driver. His mouth twisted. You sound like Miles. I sound like myself. He stepped closer. No, you sound cold. That struck something old and tender. I had spent years making sure I was not cold, not like the Winslow reputation, not like the boardrooms I grew up around. I softened myself for Evan. I made myself easy to love, easy to borrow from, easy to seat badly. No, I said, I sound finished. He stared at me, then he did the thing I had not expected. He dropped his voice and said, "If you divorce me, I will not go down alone." I did not move. He smiled slightly, as if he had found the lever. "You think your family is clean? You think your mother built Alder without enemies? You open this door, Claire, and maybe we can protect each other." I looked at the man on my porch, at the threat in the shape of reconciliation, at the husband who had seated me by a kitchen door and now wanted to make me afraid of my mother's name. I unlocked the storm door, opened it just wide enough to toss out one black garment bag. "Your suits," I said. He looked down. When he looked up again, I saw hatred. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, closing the door. "But you will." That night I slept in the guest room, not because Sophia's things had been there, because I had stripped the master bed and could not bear the shape of where Evan used to sleep. At 2:06 a.m. an email arrived from an address I did not recognize. Subject: "You should know what he asked me to do." Attached was a screenshot of a message from Evan to Nora, the Alder room manager, dated 2 days before the dinner. "Move Claire away from the head table. Near service is fine. I need Sophia visible beside me for optics." Under it, Nora had replied, "Please confirm Ms. Winslow approved this seating change." Evan's response: "She doesn't need to approve where she sits." I sat up in the dark. My hands were steady when I forwarded it to Gillian. Then I turned on every light in the room. Evan arrived at the cafe with flowers. That was how I knew the apology was fake. Not because flowers were always false. Some flowers were lovely. Some flowers meant someone had listened. Evan knew I liked wild stems in uneven glass jars, things that looked like they had been gathered in a field by accident. He brought 12 white roses wrapped in stiff paper from the expensive florist near his office. White roses, white lilies, white tablecloths, white lies. He stood when I entered, the Kafua's neutral ground chosen by Gillian, not too intimate, not too public. Cameras at both entrances, receipts printed automatically. Evan had objected to all of it, which meant it was the right place. He looked good. That irritated me. Dark sweater under a wool coat, jaw shaved clean, hair brushed back. He looked like the man strangers trusted and donors photographed. He did not look like a man who had spent the previous night threatening his wife through a locked door. "Claire," he said. I sat without touching the flowers. Gillian sat at the table behind me with a coffee and a folder. She looked like any other woman answering emails. Evan glanced at her once and looked away. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "I had 20 minutes. Pain crossed his face. It was well performed. "Is that what we are now? 20 minutes? We are what you made us." He exhaled. "I deserved that." I waited. He placed the flowers on the table. "I'm sorry." The words should have landed somewhere. They did not. "For what?" I asked. His brows drew together. "For hurting you." "How, Claire? How did you hurt me?" He looked around. A woman at the next table stirred her tea. A barista stacked cups. Evan hated being asked direct questions in places where he could not raise his voice. "I mishandled the dinner," he said. "No. I made you feel excluded." "No." His jaw tightened. "Then tell me what answer you want." "There it is." He leaned back. "This is impossible." "It's actually very simple. You seated Sophia beside you and put me by the kitchen door. You used my account to pay for the dinner. You used my card to buy her bracelet. You hid her belongings in my guest room. You drafted debt papers with my name. You threatened to call me unstable if I did not stop checking receipts. Start with one." His face hardened with every sentence. The apology drained from him like water through cloth. "I came here to make peace," he said. "You came here to regain access." He pushed the flowers aside. "Fine. You want practical. Let's be practical. The foundation board is nervous. Donors are asking questions. My mother is humiliated. Sophia is considering legal action over the way you implied she stole jewelry. She can bring receipts. Stop it." "No." He rubbed his forehead. "We can settle this cleanly. You and I issue a statement. We say there was a private marital disagreement. No misuse of funds, no improper relationship, no financial abuse. You restore the operational accounts temporarily while we work through separation. In exchange, I will agree not to contest your use of the house during the cooling-off period." I stared at him. He thought he was offering me something, the use of my own house. "Show me the statement," I said. Relief flickered across his face. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. Of course he had it ready. I unfolded it. The first paragraph said I regretted allowing a private misunderstanding to affect an important charitable event. The second said I confirmed Evan Harlow had never misused personal or foundation funds. The third said I acknowledged emotional strain had affected my judgment in recent months. The fourth said I would restore access to previously frozen accounts pending marital counseling. I read it twice, then I looked up. Did your lawyer write this? He hesitated. A communications advisor. Sophia, she has crisis experience. I laughed then. I could not help it, not loudly, not wildly, just enough that his face flushed. You brought me a statement written by the woman you seated beside you, asking me to declare that my judgment is impaired and she did nothing wrong. It's not like that. It is exactly like that. You are making an enemy of someone who could help us. Sophia. Yes, Sophia. I folded the statement carefully and slid it into my purse. Evan reached for it. That's not yours. It has my name on it. You're not taking it. I looked at the table behind me. Gillian. She was beside us before Evan could blink. He sat back. This is ridiculous. Gillian smiled without warmth. Good morning, Mr. Harlow. Do you have counsel present? This is a conversation with my wife. Your wife has counsel present. His eyes cut to me. You can't even speak to me alone now. I can, I said. I choose not to. That sentence landed inside me like a stone set in place. I choose not to. So much of my marriage had been built on things I did because choosing otherwise seemed too costly. Sit through the dinner, approve the transfer, ignore the text, host the mother-in-law, smile at the woman, protect his pride. Now, choice returned in small, sharp pieces. Evan leaned forward. Claire, listen to yourself. You're letting your brothers and this lawyer turn a marriage into a lawsuit. No, I said. You turned a marriage into an invoice. The barrister looked over. Evan lowered his voice. I loved you. The past tense opened between us. I looked at his hands, hands that had held mine at my mother's memorial, hands that had fastened necklaces at my throat, hands that had probably unclasped Sophia's bracelet before handing it to her. Maybe, I said, but you loved what my love paid for more. His eyes shone suddenly. Real emotion, not necessarily grief. Anger can shine too. You think you're better than me. No, your whole family does. The Winslows, with your quiet rooms and your private clubs and your old money manners. You all looked at me like I was lucky to be invited. I married you, and you never let me forget what you brought to the table. I looked at him for a long moment, then I said, Evan, I was not at the table. His mouth opened. No answer came. Gillian placed a card on the table. Future communication through counsel regarding finances, property, and separation. Personal communication should be limited to logistics. Evan did not touch the card. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. I hope you feel powerful. He was miserable with you long before I came back. Some women are wives in name only. Another message followed. He promised me the foundation seat. He promised me the house would be handled. He promised I would not have to stand behind you anymore. I looked at the words, the house would be handled. I turned the screen toward Gillian. She read it and her eyes sharpened. Evan noticed. What? I turned the screen toward him. For the first time that morning, he looked genuinely afraid. Claire, what did you promise her? Nothing like that. What does the house would be handled mean? It means nothing. Gillian said. Mr. Harlow, I advise you not to answer without counsel if the answer involves potential fraud. His chair scraped back. I'm done here. He stood, grabbed the flowers, then seemed to realize how childish that looked and dropped them again. I said, you forgot your statement. Keep it, he snapped. Add it to your little evidence pile. I will. His face twisted. You know what your problem is, Claire. You don't know how to be chosen unless you're buying the room. The cafe went quiet. I stood for a second. I wanted to tell him all the ways I had chosen him when he had nothing to offer me but himself. I wanted to tell him that I had hidden my money because I did not want him to feel small. I wanted to tell him that I had loved him so carefully I made myself smaller than my own life. But the woman who would have begged him to understand had been left by the kitchen door, so I said, and you don't know how to sit at a table you didn't steal. I walked out with Gillian. Outside the wind was sharp. I had forgotten my gloves. Gillian noticed and handed me hers without comment. In the car she said, the message from Sophia matters. The house, the foundation seat, the promise that she wouldn't stand behind you. It suggests planned replacement, not accidental closeness. I leaned my head against the window. Does that matter legally? Maybe it matters strategically, publicly. He wants this to look like a jealous wife overreacted to seating. We show pattern, money, access, positioning, debt, property. The dinner becomes the visible symptom of a larger scheme. A symptom. I thought of my chair by the kitchen door, the heat against my neck, the kitchen staff trying not to look embarrassed for me. How ugly will this get? I asked. Gillian did not lie. Ugly. My phone rang again. Nora, I answered quickly. Is everything okay? Yes, she said. But one of our servers from the dinner wants to speak to you. His name is Daniel Ruiz. He says Mr. Harlow paid him cash before the event and asked him to move your chair closer to the service door after the seating cards were printed. My chest went still. Why? Nora paused. Because Mr. Harlow said Sophia needed to be seen as the woman beside him and you needed to be seen as difficult if you objected. I closed my eyes. Evan had not merely humiliated me, he had prepared my reaction as part of the performance. Nora, I said, please ask Daniel to meet me. There's more, she said. I opened my eyes. What? The dessert plates were customized. Mr. Harlow ordered one for Sophia with the Harlow crest in chocolate. Yours was plain. I looked out at the street, at strangers walking dogs and carrying grocery bags, living ordinary lives where dessert was only dessert. Then I started to laugh. Gillian looked concerned. Claire, I covered my mouth. The laugh hurt, but it came anyway. He planned the dessert too. Nora was silent. I said, save the plates if they still exist. They do, Nora said. I boxed them after service stopped. Good. I ended the call. Gillian's mouth curved slightly. You were right. About what? He should have hoped you never checked every receipt. That afternoon Sophia posted again. This time she wrote, a seat at the table means nothing if the heart beside you is empty. I saved the screenshot. Then I sent her one reply. You should ask Evan why dessert never came. She did not answer. Daniel Ruiz looked too young to be carrying a rich man's secrets. He was 23, maybe 24, with nervous hands and a black Alder room server jacket folded over his lap. We met in Nora's office on the second floor under my mother's portrait. Daniel kept glancing at it as if she might object to his story. She wouldn't blame you, I said. He looked startled. My mother, she hated bullies more than mistakes. His shoulders lowered slightly. Nora sat beside him, not too close. Gillian sat across from us with her recorder on the table. After Daniel signed consent, Miles waited outside because he had the effect of making honest people more nervous and dishonest people more careful. Owen was downstairs with the archive system. Daniel rubbed his palms on his pants. Mr. Harlow came in before guests arrived, around 6. He asked who was handling the table. You, Gillian asked. Me and Priya. He asked if the seating cards were final. I said Ms. Bell had approved them. Nora nodded. The original plan seated Claire beside Evan. Daniel swallowed. Mr. Harlow said there was a change. He gave me 2 cards and told me to swap them. Which cards? I asked. Ms. Winslow's and Ms. Lane's. Hearing my name instead of Mrs. Harlow steadied me. Did he say why? Gillian asked. Daniel looked at me, then away. He said Ms. Lane was the public face tonight. He said Mrs. Harlow wouldn't mind because she wasn't good with people. Nora's mouth tightened. Gillian's pen moved. And the chair? He said the side table needed to be closer to service so you could slip out if you felt overwhelmed. I laughed once. Daniel flinched. I'm not laughing at you. I said, I'm sorry. He nodded quickly. Then he gave me cash. $200. I didn't take it at first. He said it wasn't a bribe, just appreciation for flexibility. I thought maybe it was normal. I'm new to private events. Gillian asked, did anyone else hear? Priya and maybe Mr. Tola from wine service, but Priya definitely did. Nora said, Priya has agreed to provide a written statement. Daniel looked miserable. When Ms. Winslow arrived, I knew it was wrong. I wanted to say something, but the room was full and Mr. Harlow kept watching. You did say something, I said. He frowned. You told the staff to notify Nora. His eyes lifted. That matters. A little color returned to his face. I'm sorry. I know. Gillian asked a few more questions, times, exact words, where Evan stood, whether Sophia knew. Daniel hesitated there. Gillian noticed. Tell us. When Ms. Lane arrived, Mr. Harlow brought her to the head table himself. She saw the cards. She laughed and said, bold. Then he said, necessary. The room seemed to tilt. Bold. Necessary, not accidental, not pressure, not donor engagement, a choice. I looked up at my mother's portrait. She stared past us with that calm expression she wore in photographs, the one that made people think she was gentle until they tried to cheat a supplier. Gillian turned off the recorder after Daniel finished. Thank you. We may need a sworn statement later. Daniel nodded. I'll do it. After he left, Nora placed a small white box on the table. What is that? I asked. The dessert plate. I opened it. Inside was a porcelain dessert plate wrapped in tissue. On it, preserved under clear film, was a chocolate crest, Harlow's family crest, dark against white sugar glaze. Under it, in gold script, the pastry chef had Written for Sophia. Nora placed another box beside it. Mine, plain white plate, no crest, no name. It should have been ridiculous, petty, almost laughable, but my fingers tightened on the edge of the box, because this was how erasure worked. Not always through one grand betrayal, sometimes through a chair, a card, a dessert plate, a joke, a silence, a crest piped in chocolate for the woman your husband wanted the room to honor. Nora said softly. The chef asked if you wanted these discarded. No, I said. Preserve them. Gillian nodded. Visual evidence is powerful. Against what? Against his narrative that this was a spontaneous seating error. My phone buzzed. Owen, come downstairs, found the retainer trail. I thanked Daniel again in a text before leaving Nora's office. It mattered to me that he knew he had not been swallowed by our mess without being seen. Downstairs, Owen had taken over a small private accounting room with Nora's permission. He had 2 laptops, printed statements, and a face that suggested numbers had offended him personally. Lane Public Strategy, he said, pointing at the screen, registered to Sophia Lane 6 months after her divorce. Before that, it had no major clients. Harlow Legacy Foundation becomes the first client. Retainer begins at $8,000 monthly, rises to 15, then 22,000 a month. I asked, yes, for donor messaging, campaign visibility, executive positioning. Did she do the work? Some badly, most invoices are vague, but here's the issue. Several payments were covered by shortfalls from Claire's support line. I leaned closer. The support line had been my idea, a controlled annual contribution to stabilize Harlow Legacy Foundation after a donor scandal 2 years earlier. I had insisted it be limited, documented, and used for program expenses only. Evan agreed. He had held my hand in the boardroom and thanked me for believing in his mission. Owen highlighted 3 transfers. These were marked community outreach, but the corresponding invoices are Sophia's media coaching, wardrobe consultation, and private travel. Gillian, who had joined us, said, that gives us misuse of restricted support funds. Potentially, Owen said, and there's more. I braced. He opened an email chain. Evan to Sophia. Once Claire signs the guarantee, we can restructure the debt and move the house discussion forward. Don't push her before dinner. I need her calm. Sophia replied. I am tired of being hidden while she gets the name. You said after the donor dinner people would understand where I stand. Evan, they will. The date was the morning of the dinner. I gripped the back of a chair. Gillian swore softly. Owen looked at me. I'm sorry. I read the messages again. I need her calm. He had not expected me to be happy at the dinner. He had expected me to be manageable, calm enough to sign, quiet enough to fund, humiliated enough to react if needed. Either way, he won if I swallowed it. Sophia became public if I protested. I became unstable, except he forgot where he staged the performance. Alder Room belonged to the part of me he had underestimated. Print it, I said. Owen nodded. Miles entered then. Evan is downstairs. I looked up. Here, at the host stand with Richard. Of course he brought his father. Evan liked witnesses when he wanted to look reasonable. Nora appeared in the doorway. I can have them removed. No, I said. Put them in the small blue room. Gillian looked at me. Claire, I won't be alone. Miles said. No, you will not. The small blue room had 6 chairs and no windows. My mother used it for difficult vendor conversations because nobody could look outside and pretend to be elsewhere. Evan stood when I entered. Richard stayed seated. He looked worse than the night before, grey around the mouth. Evan's eyes moved over me, then to Miles, Gillian, and Nora. So this is a tribunal? No, I said. A conversation with witnesses. Richard cleared his throat. Claire, I came to ask you to slow down. That depends on what you mean. Evan told me there are misunderstandings in the accounts, mistakes perhaps, but if this becomes public, it could destroy the foundation. The foundation paid Sophia Lane. Richard looked down, so he knew I sat across from him. Did you know? Evan said. Don't interrogate my father. Richard raised a hand. I knew there were consulting expenses. Did you know my restricted support covered them? He closed his eyes. That answer was enough. Evan leaned forward. We are trying to fix this before lawyers turn it into something it isn't, Gillian said. Too late. He ignored her. Claire, my father is willing to discuss repayment terms for anything you feel was improperly categorized. Anything I feel. Yes. I opened my folder and placed one printed email on the table. Evan's face went still. Sophia's words stared up at him. I am tired of being hidden while she gets the name. Richard read it slowly, then the next line. You said after the donor dinner people would understand where I stand. Richard's hands began to tremble. He looked at Evan. What is this? Evan said nothing. I Place the second email down. Once Claire signs the guarantee, we can restructure the debt and move the house discussion forward. Richard stood so suddenly his chair hit the wall. The house, he said. Evan's face darkened. Dad, not here. What house? I watched Evan's eyes flicker. Richard turned to me. Claire, what guarantee? Gillian answered. A marital debt acknowledgement naming Claire Winslow Hart as guarantor for obligations we are still identifying. Richard grabbed the back of his chair. Evan. Evan snapped. I had a plan. With her house. With our future. Richard looked at me then. For the first time in 3 years I saw something like shame on his face. Claire, he said quietly. I did not know that part. That part, not the humiliation, not Sophia, not the support line, that part. I stood. Then maybe you should ask your son what other parts he forgot to mention. Evan rose too. Claire, don't walk away. I'm done listening to partial truths. He stepped toward me. Miles moved. Evan stopped. Furious. You think your brothers can stand between us forever? I turned back. No, my decisions can. I left him in the blue room with his father and the emails in the hallway. My phone buzzed. Sophia again. Parking garage 5 minutes unless you're afraid to hear the truth. Gillian looked at the message. Do not go alone. I won't. But I knew I would go, not because Sophia had truth, because women like Sophia rarely threatened to talk unless they were about to expose what they wanted most. Sophia chose the parking garage because she thought cameras made people feel safe and concrete made them feel alone. She was half right. The older room garage had cameras at every elevator, every payment kiosk, every exit ramp. My mother installed them after a drunk investor once cornered a hostess near the service lift and tried to call it flirting. Security had removed him so fast his driver had to circle back for his coat. Sophia waited near level 3 beside a white Mercedes that did not belong to her. It belonged to Evan, or rather it was leased through the foundation under executive transportation. I arrived with Theo 30 feet behind me and Gillian on a live call in my coat pocket. Sophia saw Theo and rolled her eyes. Of course, she said. You brought a guard dog. Theo smiled. Woof. I did not turn around. Say what you asked me here to say. Sophia looked different away from the dining room lights, still beautiful but sharper. The soft concern was gone. Without an audience she did not waste energy pretending to be wounded. You're enjoying this, she said. No, please, the wronged wife act suits you. Cold, tragic, expensive. I'm not acting. She stepped closer. Neither am I. I waited. She lifted her chin. Evan loves me. The sentence did not hurt the way she wanted it to. Maybe because I had already heard it in every action that mattered. Love, or whatever Evan called love, had been visible in the chair, the bracelet, the dessert plate. I said, then why are you talking to me instead of packing your things into my house? Her mouth tightened. Good. He said you two were over emotionally, she said. Long before I came back he said you were more like a sponsor than a wife. Sponsor, that word did hurt. Not because I believed her, because Evan probably said it. He said you didn't understand him. Sophia continued. He said you treated every dream like an expense report. He said he wanted a woman beside him who believed in what he could become. What did he promise you? She smiled. Truthfully, I prefer it. The foundation seat, public partnership, the house once the debt was restructured, a new campaign under my firm, introductions to the Winslow donor circle. She tilted her head. Your circle, I suppose, though you never used it well. Behind me, Theo made a low sound. I raised one hand. Sophia saw it and smiled wider. That's right, keep the dog quiet. I studied her. You really thought Evan could give you those things? He can. He could not pay dinner without my authorization. Her face flickered. I stepped closer now. Sophia, did he tell you the house is mine? He said the title was temporary. Did he tell you the Winslow donor circle does not open for a spouse? He said you were sentimental. He lied. She looked away toward the elevator. For the first time I saw the calculation adjust behind her eyes. Then she recovered. You know what your problem is, Claire. You think ownership is the same as being wanted. That line sounds familiar. Did Evan give it to you, or do you both shop at the same insecurity store? Her eyes flashed. He chose me. No, he staged you. Her smile vanished. He put you beside him at a dinner he could not pay for, in a room I authorized, wearing jewelry bought with my card, under a crest printed on dessert he never got to eat. If that is being chosen, Sophia, your standards are worse than mine were. She slapped me. Theo moved so fast Sophia stumbled back before I even processed the sting. He did not touch her. He planted himself between us, and for one wild second I thought he might forget every promise he had made. Theo, I said. His shoulders rose and fell. She hit you. I know. Sophia's face had gone white. She knew what she had done. More importantly, she knew where. I looked up at the camera above the elevator, then I took out my phone and photographed my cheek. Sophia whispered, "You provoked me." I laughed softly. "That sentence is a family heirloom, isn't it?" She grabbed her purse. "You are not a victim." "No," I said, "not anymore." She pointed at me. "Evan will destroy you. If you keep pushing, Evan cannot even destroy a dinner bill." Her hand shook. Then she said the one thing I think she had come to say all along. "You don't know about the recording." Theo frowned. "What recording?" Sophia smiled again, but it trembled. "Ask your husband what he has of you after your mother's funeral." The garage seemed to grow colder. "What?" I said. "He said if you tried to ruin him, people would hear what you were really like, crying, breaking things, saying you wished you had died." Instead, her eyes glittered. Not exactly the calm Winslow princess. For a moment, I was back in the bedroom 4 years earlier, on the floor beside my mother's old sweater, unable to breathe. Evan had found me there. I had said things grief says when it is trying to claw out of a body. I had trusted him to hold them. Sophia watched my face and knew she had finally drawn blood. "There she is," she whispered. Theo said, "Claire." I lifted my phone. Sophia's words had been recording since the moment I stepped out of the elevator. Gillian had heard all of it through my coat pocket. "You should go," I said. Sophia's smile faded. "Did you record me?" "Yes." "You can't use that. Watch me." She backed away. "He told me you were cruel." "No," I said. "He told you I was weak. That's why you're surprised." She got into the Mercedes and slammed the door. Theo came to me the second she drove away. "Your cheek." "I'm fine." "You're not." "No, but I'm not bleeding." "That's a low bar." I laughed and it came out almost like a sob. He looked stricken. I touched his arm. "I need a minute." He nodded and walked a few steps away, turning his back to give me privacy while still standing close enough to stop the world if it moved wrong. I pulled the phone from my pocket. Gillian was still on the line. "You heard?" I asked. "All of it," she said. Her voice was not cold now, it was careful. "Claire, did Evan record you during a mental health crisis?" "I don't know." "Did you consent?" "No." "Were you in your home?" "Yes." "Was he threatening to release it?" "He texted about telling everyone I was unstable." "Sophia says he has audio." Gillian paused. "That changes things. Legally, strategically, morally, all of it." I leaned against a concrete pillar. My cheek burned, my chest hurt worse. Gillian said, "Claire, listen to me. Grief is not instability. A private breakdown after your mother's death is not evidence against you. If he recorded it and threatened to weaponize it, that is not your shame." I closed my eyes. "Not your shame." The words did not fix it, but they found a place to stand. After I ended the call, Theo drove me to Miles's house, not because I could not drive, but because everyone agreed I should not have to. The smear began before we arrived. Sophia posted a story first. No photo of me, just text. "It is terrifying when someone with money, cameras, lawyers, and family power tries to ruin anyone who tells the truth." Then Blair posted, "Praying for everyone involved. Emotional abuse is real even when it wears diamonds." Then an anonymous account shared a blurred clip of me leaving Alder Room the night of the dinner. "My brothers around me, Evan outside." Caption: "Billionaire wife humiliates husband over dinner seat. Financial abuse by midnight." My name was online in circles I had spent years avoiding. Claire Winslow Hart. Cold heiress, controlling wife, rich girl tantrum. No one mentioned the kitchen door. No one mentioned Sophia's bracelet. No one mentioned Evan's unpaid bill. That was the purpose of a smear. It did not need to prove a lie. It only needed to give people a more entertaining story than the truth. Miles found me in his kitchen at 1:20 a.m. staring at my phone. "Stop reading," he said. "I need to know. You need to sleep." "I can't." He sat across from me. He looked tired too, older brother tired. The kind that came from wanting to fix pain and knowing the person in pain had asked not to be fixed. "I keep thinking about the recording," I said. His face hardened. "I don't even remember everything I said." "After Mom died," I continued. "What if it's awful? Then it is awful grief, not evidence." "That's what Gillian said." "Gillian is right." I looked down at the phone. "People will believe it. Some will." That honesty almost comforted me. Miles leaned forward. "But people are not caught. People are not your house deed. People are not older. People are loud. That does not make them important." "It feels important." "I know." My phone buzzed. "Evan, I should have blocked him. I did not." "Not yet." Evidence still came from open doors. I answered on speaker. Miles stayed silent. Evan said, "You met Sophia?" "Yes." "You recorded her?" "Yes." His breathing changed. "Delete it." "No." "Claire, I'm warning you." About the recording from after my mother died. Silence. Miles's face went still. I said, "Did you record me without consent?" Evan's voice lowered. "You were scaring me. I needed to protect myself. From your grieving wife. You were unstable. There's that word again. If you force my hand, I'll release it." Miles stood. I raised my hand, stopping him. My voice sounded calm when I said, "If you release a private recording of me during a grief episode to intimidate me in a divorce and financial investigation, Jillian will bury you so deep in civil claims your grandchildren will need a map." He laughed. But it shook. "You don't talk like that." "I do now. You're making a mistake." "No," I said. "I made one 3 years ago. This is correction." I ended the call. Miles looked at me for a long moment. "You handled that." "I'm shaking." "You handled it while shaking." My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Harlow Legacy Foundation. Emergency board meeting notice. Agenda item: conduct and financial disruption caused by Claire Winslow Hart. I smiled. Miles looked concerned. "What? They're putting me on the agenda. That amuses you." I forwarded the notice to Jillian and Owen. "It saves me the trouble of asking for a meeting." The Harlow Legacy Foundation boardroom had a wall of photographs showing Evan shaking hands with children, veterans, artists, mayors, donors, and one former senator who later went to prison. None of the photographs showed me. That had once been my preference. I disliked publicity. I told myself the work mattered more than credit. I believed anonymity protected sincerity. Now, standing under those photographs while Evan prepared to accuse me of harming the foundation I had quietly kept alive, I understood how easily humility becomes erasure when handed to the wrong person. Evan sat at the head of the table. Sophia sat 2 chairs down, not officially a board member but present as communications support. Margaret sat along the wall, clutching her purse like a weapon. Richard sat beside her, silent and grey-faced. The board chair, Martin Kessler, adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Harlow, thank you for attending. Ms. Winslow is fine," I said. Evan's eyes cut to me. "Small correction, large room." Martin cleared his throat. "Ms. Winslow, then we are here because recent events have affected foundation operations, donor confidence, and public perception." "That is true." Evan leaned back as if my agreement proved his case. Martin continued, "Mr. Harlow has expressed concern that certain financial disruptions may have been personal in nature and harmful to ongoing programs." I looked at Evan. "Did he?" Evan folded his hands. "Claire, no one wants this to be adversarial." Sophia lowered her eyes. "I almost admired their choreography," Martin said. "We would like to understand why operational accounts connected to your support line were suspended without transition, because my restricted support was used outside its approved purpose." A murmur moved around the table. Evan's smile disappeared. "That is not accurate." I opened my folder. Jillian sat beside me, but she did not reach for the papers. This was mine. I placed the first document in front of Martin. "This is the support agreement. Section 3 limits the funds to program expenses, event access for approved foundation functions, and bridge support for donor-matched commitments." Martin read quickly. I placed the second document down. "These are invoices from Lane Public Strategy." Sophia sat straighter. I placed the third. "These are transfers from the support line covering shortfalls that match those invoices." The board member on Martin's left, a woman named Patricia Lowell, leaned forward. "Lane Public Strategy is your firm, Ms. Lane?" Sophia smiled carefully. "Yes, I was retained for communications work." Patricia asked. "Wardrobe consultation." Sophia's smile held. "Executive image is part of communications." Owen, seated behind me as a financial consultant, coughed once. "It was not subtle," Evans said. "The invoices were categorized broadly because campaign presentation matters to donor engagement. This is common." I placed another paper down. "Then perhaps you can explain why Sophia's hotel bar charges, spa appointments, and bracelet purchase were tied to foundation event preparation or charged to my joint card." Sophia went pink. "That bracelet was a personal gift." "From whom?" "Evan." I turned to Evan. "With which card?" He said nothing. Patricia looked at him. "Mr. Harlow." Evan's voice tightened. "My wife and I have shared finances." I said, "No, you had access to a joint card funded from my personal account for household and approved family expenses." "Jewelry for Sophia Lane was not approved," Sophia said. "This is humiliating." I looked at her. "Yes." Martin lifted a hand. "Let's remain focused." "Gladly," I said. "Focus on this." I passed over the email Evan sent Sophia once. Claire signs the guarantee, we can restructure the debt and move the house discussion forward. The room changed, not loudly, no one gasped, no one shouted, but shoulders shifted, eyes lifted. Something entered the room that Evan could not charm away. Martin read the email, then he read it again. Mr. Harlow, he said slowly, what guarantee? Evan's face had gone hard. A draft related to temporary restructuring, it was never executed, Patricia said. Was the board aware of foundation-linked debt restructuring involving your spouse? It was not foundation-linked, Evan said. Owen stood. Actually, several outstanding obligations appear to involve foundation vendor commitments backed informally by Mr. Harlow's personal assurances, which he intended to consolidate. Evan snapped, you have no standing here. Martin looked at Owen. And you are, Owen Winslow, forensic accounting, retained by MS Winslow to review uses of her restricted support. Evan laughed. Of course. I placed Daniel's statement on the table. And this is a statement from an older room server confirming Evan changed my seat before the dinner and paid cash to move my chair near the kitchen door. Margaret stood. This is character assassination. No, Patricia said quietly. This is documentation. Margaret looked stunned that anyone had contradicted her. Evan leaned forward. Do any of you really want to let a marital dispute derail years of work? I turned to him. You made my money part of your work, you made Sophia part of your work. You made humiliating me at a donor dinner part of your work. Don't complain because the work has records. Sophia spoke then, voice trembling just enough. I think everyone should know Claire threatened me in a parking garage. Theo, seated near the door, made a sound. I took out my phone. Sophia's eyes widened. Would you like me to play the recording? I asked. Evan said. Claire. I looked at Martin. MS Lane struck me after admitting Evan promised her a foundation seat, public partnership, the house and donor introductions. That is a lie, Sophia said. Then let's listen. Gillian finally spoke. The recording was lawfully captured in a monitored parking structure during a conversation MS Lane initiated. We are prepared to provide it to counsel. Martin closed his eyes for a moment. Evan's hand curled into a fist on the table. Patricia looked at Sophia. Did you strike her? Sophia's mouth opened, closed. That was enough. Martin leaned back. Mr. Harlow, pending review, I am recommending temporary suspension of your unilateral signing authority. Evan stood. You cannot be serious. Martin did not flinch. I am. This foundation has my family name, Patricia said. And apparently some of MS Winslow's money. Margaret made a sharp sound. Richard put his face in his hands. Sophia stood too. If this is how I'm being treated, I will step away from consulting until things are clearer. Owen murmured. Convenient. Evan shot him a look. Stay out of my life. Owen smiled. I've been funding parts of it by accident, so no. A few board members looked down to hide reactions. That was Evan's first public loss after the dinner, not enough to destroy him, enough to crack the glass. Martin called for an executive session without Evans, Sophia, or me. That meant we had to wait in the hallway. Evans stormed out first, Sophia followed, but she did not take his arm. I noticed, so did he. In the hallway he turned on me. Are you happy now? No, you want me ruined. I want records corrected. You want revenge. I looked at him. If I wanted revenge, I would have let you keep borrowing until the debt swallowed your family whole. His mouth tightened. Sophia stood a few feet away, scrolling furiously. Margaret came out of the boardroom behind us. Claire, I hope you understand what you've done. You have embarrassed not just Evan but all of us. I turned to her. Good. She recoiled. I had never spoken to Margaret like that, not once. I used to soften every sentence around her because she had a way of making offense look like injury. She whispered, How dare you? You taught me public embarrassment mattered. I finally listened. Her face changed. You think because you have money you can treat family like this? No, Margaret, I think because I am family you should not have treated me like a wallet with manners. Richard looked up then. Something in his face moved, regret maybe or calculation. With the Harlows it was hard to tell. The boardroom door opened. Martin called Evan in. The rest of us waited. 8 minutes later Evan came out. His face told me before anyone spoke. Signing authority suspended, consultant contracts frozen, independent audit authorized, donor communications paused. Sophia read his expression and went still. Evan. He did not answer her. That was her first real consequence. Not losing the contract, not the public suspicion. The silence from the man who had promised her a seat when the seat became costly. She saw it too. Her face hardened. At 4:30 p.m. the board sent a formal notice. At 5:10 Sophia deleted 3 posts. At 6:00 the anonymous account that had called me a financially abusive wife posted again, this time with an edited clip of me in the cave saying, "I choose not to." The caption read, "Claire Winslow admits she chose to destroy her husband." By 7:00 the clip had spread. By 8:15 Evan texted me, "You should have taken the statement." By 8:17 Margaret texted, "Tomorrow night Harlow House family meeting, come alone if you have any decency left." I showed Gillian, she said, "It's a trap." "Yes," I said. "Are you going?" "Yes." Miles on the other end of the conference call said, "Absolutely not alone." "I won't be alone," I said. "I'll wear a recorder." Theo said, "That is not the same thing." "I know." Owen asked, "What do you expect them to do?" I looked at Margaret's message, "Family meeting, come alone, decency." "I expect them to ask for my signature," I said. Gillian went quiet. "On what?" "The statement, the debt, maybe both." Miles said, "Then we prepare." "No," I said. "They prepare, we document." That night before I slept I opened the old photo album from my wedding. There was a picture of Evan and me cutting cake, his hand over mine, my face turned up toward him, his face turned toward the camera. I had not noticed that before. Even then, he had known where the audience was. I closed the album and placed it in a box marked legal. The next morning, a courier delivered a packet to my door, no return name. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. He asked me to edit the audio of you. I kept the original. I called Gillian, then I called my brothers, then I played the file. My voice on the recording did not sound like me at first. It sounded smaller, broken open. The file began with rustling, then Evan's voice, low and soothing. "Claire, baby, breathe, you're scaring me." Then my voice, raw and almost unrecognizable. "I can't do this. I can't do this without her. I should have answered the phone. I should have gone with her. I should have died instead." The room where we played it went completely still. Miles looked away. Owen removed his glasses. Theo stood and walked to the window, one hand over his mouth. I kept listening, not because I wanted to, because Evan had counted on my shame doing what his threats could not. The recording continued. I sobbed. I said things grief had dragged out of me when my mother's absence felt like a physical injury. I heard Evan telling me I was safe. I heard myself asking him not to leave the room. Then the file clicked. A second version began. This one was shorter, cleaner, edited. My worst sentences had been cut together without Evan's comfort, without context, without the long silences where I simply cried. It sounded like madness. It sounded like danger. It sounded like exactly what Evan wanted people to believe. Gillian paused the file. Nobody spoke. Finally she said, "Who sent the drive?" "I don't know." Owen opened the metadata. File created by someone named Marcus Bell, Nora's brother, it turned out, had once done freelance editing for Evan's communications team. Evan had asked him 3 months earlier to clean up a private audio file in case a family reputation issue ever became public. Marcus had kept the original because the request made him uneasy. When the smear campaign began, he sent it 3 months earlier, before the dinner, before the seating, before Sophia's public position. Evan had prepared to weaponize my grief before I ever refused him. That knowledge settled over me with a strange finality. Until then, some part of my heart had still been arguing with memory. It kept bringing up the good days like witnesses. For the defense, the way Evan rubbed my back when migraines came, the morning he learned how to make my mother's cinnamon toast because I cried over the smell, the winter he drove through snow to bring me a charger at the hospital when my father had surgery. But a person can comfort you and still store the sound of your pain as ammunition. That truth killed the last living thing. At 6 that evening I drove to the Harlow house, not alone. Gillian followed in her car. Miles and Owen parked 2 blocks away. Theo hated the plan but agreed to wait after I made him promise 3 times. I wore a recorder under my coat. My phone streamed audio to Gillian. The Harlow house sat behind iron gates with lights glowing in every window. I had paid to repair those gates after a storm. I had ordered the lights Margaret loved for Christmas tours. I had arranged the caterer for her birthday brunch. My fingerprints were everywhere in that house, and yet I had never felt welcome in it. Margaret opened the door herself. She looked me up and down. "No brothers." No, that was technically true for the front porch. She stepped aside. The living room was arranged like a hearing. Evan stood by the fireplace. Richard sat in an armchair. Blair and 2 cousins occupied the sofa. Sophia sat near Margaret, wearing a cream sweater and no bracelet. On the coffee table lay a folder, 2 pens, and a glass of water no one had touched. I did not sit. Margaret gestured to a chair. Sit down, Claire. I'm fine standing. Evan's face was unreadable. This doesn't have to be hostile. It already is, Sophia sighed. This is what I mean, everything becomes an attack. I looked at her. Did Evan invite you to my family meeting, or do you live here now too? Her face flushed. Margaret snapped. Do not speak to Sophia that way, she has shown more grace in this situation than anyone. By hitting me in a garage, Blair gasped. She what? Sophia said quickly. She provoked me. There's video. Sophia went quiet. Richard looked at Evan. You didn't tell us that, Evan said. Not relevant. It is to me, Richard muttered. Margaret picked up the folder. Enough, Claire, this family is at a breaking point. Your actions have caused reputational damage, financial disruption, and emotional harm. My actions? You froze accounts without discussion. I revoked my money. You locked Evan out of his home. My house. She slapped the folder against her palm. This is the attitude I'm talking about. Marriage is not a spreadsheet. No, but your family keeps handing me invoices. Evan stepped forward. We are offering you a path out. I smiled slightly. How generous. Margaret opened the folder. A statement. You will confirm that the dinner incident was a private misunderstanding, that Evan has never abused marital funds, that Sophia Lane has been unfairly targeted, and that your recent behavior was influenced by grief-related emotional strain. My grief sat between us like a body. I looked at Evan. Did you write the last part? He did not answer. Sophia said softly, it would help people understand. I turned to her. Understand what? That you're not evil, she said. Just hurt. Blair murmured. That sounds fair. I laughed. Everyone stared. I'm sorry. I said, I just realized you all rehearsed compassion as a threat. Margaret's eyes narrowed. If you refuse to correct the record, we will have no choice but to release information that gives context. What information? Evan said. Claire, what information? I repeated. He looked at me for a long second, then he said, recordings from after your mother died. Blair looked uncomfortable. Richard sat up sharply. Margaret did not look surprised. There it was, not just Evan. Margaret knew. I let silence stretch, then I asked, you want me to sign a statement protecting Evan and Sophia, restore financial cooperation, and accept blame for emotional instability, or you will release private recordings of me grieving my mother? Margaret's mouth tightened. Do not twist this. I'm clarifying. Evan moved toward me. We don't want to release anything, but you will, if you force us. Richard stood. Evan, stop. Evan turned. Dad, no. Richard's voice shook. No, this is too far. Margaret snapped. Richard, sit down. He did not. You recorded her after Eleanor died. Eleanor, my mother's name in his mouth made me look at him. Evan said. I recorded because I was worried. And you kept it for 3 years. Evan said nothing. Sophia looked at her hands. Richard's face changed as understanding arrived piece by piece. You were going to use it, Margaret said. We were going to protect the family. Richard stared at her. From Claire. Nobody answered. I reached into my bag and took out the flash drive. Evan's eyes sharpened. What is that? He asked. The original recording, I said. And the edited one. The room stopped breathing. Evan's face went pale. Sophia whispered. How did you get that? Someone you asked to edit it had more conscience than you. Blair stood. Edit it. I looked at her. Yes, Evan had my grief edited into a weapon. No, Evan said. That is not fair. I laughed again, but this time it was cold. Fair. Gillian's voice sounded in my earpiece, quiet and clear. You're doing well. I placed the flash drive on the coffee table beside the statement. I came tonight to hear exactly how far you would go. I said. Thank you for telling me. Margaret's face hardened. You recorded this? Yes. Sophia stood. That's illegal. It's not, I said. But your legal confidence is becoming a theme. Evan moved fast, reaching for the flash drive. I picked it up before he could take it. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Margaret looked toward the hall. Who is that? I said. My lawyer. Gillian entered before Margaret could object. Miles and Owen stood behind her. Theo was not there because I had specifically ordered him to stay in the car, and for once he obeyed. Gillian held a folder. Good evening, this meeting is over. Margaret bristled. This is my home, and Ms. Winslow is leaving it. Evan looked at me. Claire, don't do this. I looked at the man who had recorded my worst night and called it protection. There is nothing left to do. Richard said my name quietly. Claire. I paused. He looked ashamed now, truly ashamed, maybe too late, but real enough to be painful. I'm sorry, he said. Margaret made a disgusted sound. I looked at Richard. Then stop letting them use that word while doing nothing. He flinched. I left the Harlow house with Gillian at my side. Outside, Theo was pacing beside the car like a caged bear. Well, I handed Gillian the recorder, then looked back at the lit windows. They threatened to release the grief recording. I said. Theo swore. Miles's face went dark. Owen asked. And I looked at the house, and Richard finally heard them. That mattered less than evidence, more than I wanted it to. On the drive home, Gillian called Martin Kessler and notified him that Evan had threatened reputational retaliation using private recordings tied to ongoing financial disputes. Then she sent a preservation demand to Evan's counsel, Sophia, Margaret, and every Harlow family member present. By midnight, Blair had deleted her reposts. By morning, Patricia Lowell from the foundation board called Gillian. By noon, the independent audit expanded. By 3, Sophia's firm website went offline. At 4, Evan texted, "We need to talk before this destroys everyone." I answered for the first time in days. "Then come to dinner." His reply came fast. "What?" I typed slowly. "Alder room, Friday, family only. You wanted a table, let's finish at 1. Evan arrived early. That was his first mistake. Men like Evan believed arriving early made them look composed. In truth, it gave them more time to be observed. Nora watched him from the host stand. Daniel saw him from the service station. The cameras saw him adjust his cuffs, check his reflection in the dark window, glance toward the entrance every time the door opened. Sophia arrived 7 minutes after him. That was his second mistake. He had told Gillian she would not be present. He had written family only in his response. But Sophia entered in a black dress and a camel coat, chin lifted, looking ready for a funeral where she expected to inherit. Evan's face changed when he saw her. Not surprise, irritation. Good, they had not come as allies. They had come as people hoping the other still had a ladder. Margaret and Richard arrived next. Richard looked at me first when he entered. Margaret did not. Blair came with her husband, eyes red, phone gripped in hand. 2 cousins followed reluctantly. My brothers were already there, not at the head table. At a side table near the wall, where they could see everything and interrupt nothing. Gillian sat with Nora near the service door. Martin Kessler and Patricia Lowell had accepted my invitation as foundation observers. Evan had objected. I had replied that if he could invite Sophia to a family meeting, I could invite the people whose funds he misused. At 7:00 p.m. the dining room doors closed. This time there was one long table. At the head sat a name card. Claire Winslow, not Hart, not Harlow, Winslow. Evan saw it and stopped. His name card was halfway down the table. Sophia's was beside Margaret, far from him. Richard sat opposite Patricia, Blair near the middle. My brothers remained off-table by choice. Evan looked at Nora. "This seating is wrong." Nora said, "No, Mr. Harlow, it was approved by the host." His eyes moved to me. I stood at the head of the table in a navy dress my mother had bought me before she died. I had not worn it in years because grief made some fabrics too heavy. Tonight it felt like armor. Evan's voice lowered. "Claire, don't perform." I smiled. "Sit down." The room heard it. The words he had given me by the kitchen door returned to him dressed differently. His face flushed. Sophia looked between us, calculating whether to protest. She did not. Everyone sat. Nora signaled. Servers entered with the first course. No one ate. I remained standing. "I invited you here," I said, because the last family dinner in this room became the story Evan wanted to tell about me. He said I overreacted to a seat. He said I used money to humiliate him. He said Sophia was unfairly attacked. He said my grief made me unstable. He said a great many things. Tonight before dessert everyone will know what he left out. Evan stood. "This is insane." "Sit down," Richard said. The room turned to him. Evan stared at his father. "Excuse me." Richard did not raise his voice. "Sit down." For 1 second I saw the Harlow family rearrange itself, not completely, not morally, but enough. Richard had spent years avoiding discomfort. Evan had mistaken that for loyalty. Evan sat. I picked up the remote. The screen at the end of the room lit. First image, the original seating chart from the night of the dinner. Claire beside Evan, Sophia beside Margaret. Second image, Evan's email to Nora. "Move Claire away from the head table. Near service is fine. I need Sophia visible beside me for optics." A sound moved through the table. Sophia closed her eyes. Evan said, "That lacks context." I clicked again. Nora's response, "Please confirm MS." Winslow approved. This seating change. Evan's response, "She doesn't need to approve where she sits." Margaret's mouth tightened. Blair covered her lips. I clicked again. Daniel's signed statement, then a still image from the service station camera. Evan handing Daniel cash. Evan pushed back his chair. "This is selective," Patricia said. "Then provide your full context." He sat again. I clicked again. Sophia's bracelet receipt charged to the joint card, date 3 days before the dinner, amount $12,400. Sophia whispered. Evan said it was his card. I looked at her. I believe you. She looked startled. I believe he lied to you too, I said. That does not make you innocent, it makes you informed. The next slide showed Lane public strategy invoices, monthly retainer, wardrobe, media coaching, travel, spa charges, hotel bar, then the support line transfers. Owen stood at the side table and explained the flow in plain English without drama that made it worse for Evan. Numbers do not need emphasis. When they are ugly enough, Martin asked Evan, were any of these reimbursements disclosed to the board as payments benefiting MS Lane personally? Evan said, they were campaign expenses. Patricia said, a bracelet is not a campaign expense. Sophia's face burned. I clicked again. The email chain. I am tired of being hidden while she gets the name. You said after the donor dinner people would understand where I stand. Evan stared at the screen. Sophia stared at the table. Margaret whispered, oh Evan. Not apology, not yet. Shock that the private ugliness had become readable. I clicked again. Once Claire signs the guarantee, we can restructure the debt and move the house discussion forward. Don't push her before dinner. I need her calm. Richard stood. This time no chair hit the wall. He moved slowly, as if something inside him had finally aged. What debt? He asked. Evan rubbed his face. Dad, not now. What debt? I answered. The draft guarantee would have tied me to obligations Evan had not disclosed fully. Some appear connected to vendor commitments and family property restructuring. Richard turned to Margaret. Did you know? Margaret's face was white. Not the details. That means yes, Blair whispered. Margaret snapped. Stay out of adult matters. Blair looked at her mother-in-law with sudden disgust. You used me to post about Claire. Margaret said nothing. I clicked again. Sophia's parking garage recording transcript appeared. I did not play the slap. I did not need to. The transcript showed her admitting the promises, foundation seat, house, donor circle, public partnership. Sophia stood. I was angry. I exaggerated. I looked at her. Sit down. She did. That surprised me more than it should have. Evan leaned forward. Claire, this is enough. You've made your point. No, I said. You made it for me. I clicked one final time. The screen went black. Then audio played. My voice broken. I should have died instead. The room froze. Evan went pale. The clip stopped after that one sentence. Then the original began with Evan's voice before it. Claire, baby, breathe. You're scaring me. Then my sobbing. Then my full sentence. Then silence. Then Evan saying, I'm here. I won't leave you. I stopped it there. I did not need to bleed in front of them longer. This, I said, my voice steady only because I had practiced it for 2 days, was recorded in my bedroom after my mother died. I did not consent. Evan had it edited to make me sound unstable. He and Margaret threatened to release it unless I signed a statement protecting him, Sophia, and the foundation narrative. No one moved. I looked at Margaret. Do you deny it? Her lips parted. Richard said, Margaret. She closed her mouth. Evan stood. I recorded because I was worried about her. Gillian rose and edited it 3 months ago for potential release. Evan looked at her. Hatred flashed across his face. Stay out of my marriage, I said. There is no marriage. The sentence landed like a glass breaking. I picked up the folder beside my plate. These are the divorce papers. These are notices of revoked authorization. These are preservation demands. These are foundation audit materials. These are instructions removing Harlow access from all Alder Group properties. Margaret gripped the table. Claire, think carefully. I did for once. Before dessert, Nora stepped forward. Mr. Harlow, she said, voice calm as ever. Alder Room requires that you leave the premises. Evan stared at her. You cannot be serious. I am. Sophia stood quickly. I came as an invited guest. No, Nora said. You came under Mr. Harlow's representation. The host has withdrawn permission. Sophia looked at me. I said nothing. Security appeared at the doors. The room was silent except for the soft clink of a fork someone had set down too quickly. Evan looked around the table. Dad. Richard did not look at him. Mother. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she did not move. Blair. Blair looked at her phone. Sophia grabbed her coat. Evan, do something. He turned on her. This happened because you couldn't stay quiet. The room inhaled. Sophia stared at him. There it was, the partnership, stripped down to blame. She laughed once. You promised me her life and didn't even own your own. Evan's face twisted. Nora said, now please. Security did not touch him. They did not need to. Evan buttoned his jacket again. The same useless gesture as the first dinner. Sophia walked ahead of him this time. She did not wait at the door. Evan turned back to me. For a moment I saw the man from my wedding photo, the man smiling at the camera while holding my hand. Then the image disappeared. "You'll regret making me your enemy," he said. I looked at the dessert plates being carried in behind him. "No," I said, "I regret making you my husband." The doors closed. Dessert was served. No Harlow crest, no Sophia in gold script. Just small dark chocolate cakes with a single sugared violet on each plate, my mother's favorite. Richard stared at his untouched dessert, then he asked, very quietly, "Did Evan put our house into any of this?" Owen opened his laptop. "That," he said, "is what we discuss next." Outside the glass doors, Evan stood under the alder sign again. This time, nobody followed him. The first thing Evan lost was not his wife, it was his signature. The foundation board suspended him before noon the next day, not permanently, not yet. Because boards like to wrap panic in procedure, but enough that every vendor, donor, and consultant connected to Harlow Legacy Foundation received notice that Evan Harlow no longer had unilateral authority to approve contracts, reimbursements, or public statements. Sophia's contract froze with 3 unpaid invoices pending review. She called me at 12:17. I let it ring. She called Gillian at 12:20. Gillian answered, listened for 90 seconds, then said, "Ms. Lane, if you are alleging Mr. Harlow misrepresented his authority to compensate you, I suggest you retain counsel. If you are asking my client to pay invoices tied to your personal benefit, the answer is no." Sophia hung up. By 1, Lane Public Strategies website was still down. By 2, Blair posted a careful statement. "I shared information I did not understand. I regret contributing to harm. I am stepping back from family matters. It was not brave, but it was useful." By 3, Margaret called Richard a coward loud enough that a household employee heard it, and by 5, told Gillian's investigator that Mrs. Harlow had known Evan planned to make Claire look unwell if she tried to leave. That was how family empires cracked, not under a hammer, under staff who had heard enough. At 4, Evan came to Gillian's office with a lawyer named Grant Pell, a man with silver hair and the expression of someone billing in 6-minute increments. I sat across from him with Gillian on my right and Miles on my left. My brothers were there because Evan had insisted I would be intimidated by formal negotiation. He had forgotten I grew up doing homework under boardroom tables while my mother negotiated leases above my head. Evan looked wrecked, not humble, wrecked. There was a difference. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie was loose. His phone kept buzzing until Grant told him to turn it off. Grant began, "We are here to seek a reasonable resolution that protects all parties from unnecessary escalation." Gillian said, "Define reasonable." "A mutual non-disparagement agreement, a confidential financial settlement, separation with no admission of wrongdoing, restoration of certain limited operating channels for foundation continuity." "No," I said. Grant blinked. He was not used to clients speaking before lawyers arranged the furniture of conflict. Evan looked at me. "Claire, no. You haven't heard the terms." "I heard restoration," Grant said smoothly. "Ms. Winslow, you must understand that total withdrawal of support could be interpreted as punitive, given the marital relationship." I looked at Gillian. She gave the smallest nod. "Go ahead." "My restricted support agreement allowed termination upon misuse," I said. "My personal accounts were never marital operating channels. My house is premarital property. My older authorization was temporary. My foundation support was conditional. My grief recording was private. Tell me which part you believe Evan is entitled to keep." Grant went quiet for half a second too long. Evan whispered, "You sound just like her." I knew who he meant, my mother. For the first time, the comparison did not feel like an accusation. "Thank you," I said. His face tightened. Grant recovered. "There is also the question of public damage to Mr. Harlow's reputation." Gillian opened a folder. "Damage caused by documented conduct. We dispute portions." "Which portions?" Grant glanced at Evan. Evan looked away. Gillian placed a list on the table: unauthorized use of stored approval credentials, misclassification of personal expenses, threatened release of non-consensual private recording, attempted coercion for public statement, potential debt concealment, event authorization misuse. "We can discuss each." Grant's mouth thinned. Then Sophia arrived. No one had invited her. She walked into the reception area demanding to see Evan through the glass wall. I watched him stand so fast his chair rolled back. Grant muttered, "For God's sake." Gillian's assistant tried to stop Sophia, but Sophia's voice rose. He told me I would be protected, he told me the invoices were approved, he told me Claire knew more than she admitted. Evan went to the door. Sophia, leave. No, she pointed at him. You don't get to throw me under the bus because your wife found receipts. Grant closed his eyes. Gillian looked almost pleased. Sophia saw me through the glass, her face twisted. You think you won? Ask him about Margaret's account, ask him about the family house. Ask him how many times his mother told him you were too rich to leave with half. Richard had not come to the meeting, but his shadow entered anyway. Evan grabbed Sophia's arm. Miles stood. Evan let go. Sophia laughed. Scared now. Grant opened the conference room door. Ms. Lane, this is a legal meeting, you need to leave. I need my money. Evan snapped. You were paid enough. Sophia stared at him. Paid? The word changed the room. I saw it hit her, not because she was innocent, but because Evan had just named the transaction without romance. Grant said sharply. Evan. Too late. Sophia looked at me. He said you were a cold wife. He said he had to beg for affection. He said I was the only person who made him feel like a man. Evan's face flushed. Stop. She stepped closer to the glass. But you know what he talked about. After sex, your accounts, your brother's, your mother's restaurants. Whether you would sign if he cried or if he should make you angry first. The room went silent. Sophia's eyes filled with tears now, real or humiliated or both. He made me think I was replacing you. I was just another way to reach you. For 1 second I felt something unexpected, not forgiveness, recognition. Sophia had wanted my seat, but Evan had arranged the chairs. Gillian said, Ms. Lane, you should speak to your own counsel before saying more. Sophia laughed bitterly. Now everyone wants me quiet. She left with the elevator doors closing hard behind her. Evan sat slowly. Grant looked like a man watching his invoice catch fire. Gillian folded her hands. Where were we? The negotiation changed after that. Evan no longer asked for restored operating channels. Grant no longer mentioned my emotional instability. The focus narrowed to clean separation, property confirmation, debt insulation, and non-release of private recordings under strict penalty. The house was mine, the joint card debt tied to Sophia's purchases was assigned to Evan pending fraud review. My restricted support line remained terminated. Alder Group access stayed revoked. Evan agreed not to contest the divorce petition on grounds of abandonment or financial cruelty. In return, I agreed to let the formal investigation process determine foundation consequences instead of releasing every document publicly that day. That was not mercy, it was strategy. Public truth had done its work, legal truth would do the rest. At the end, Evan asked for 5 minutes alone. Gillian said. No, I said, 3 minutes, door open. Miles did not like it, Gillian liked it less. But I needed to see what Evan did when every lever had been removed. We stood near the window overlooking the street. People passed below carrying coffee, umbrellas, shopping bags. Ordinary life. Mine had once looked ordinary from the outside too. Evan said, I did love you. I looked at him. I know you don't believe that. I believe you loved being loved by me. He flinched. I believe you loved the house warm, the bills paid, your mother pleased, your donors impressed, your failures softened before anyone saw them. I believe you loved the version of yourself you could be near me. His eyes filled. That's cruel. No, it's accurate. He swallowed. Sophia meant nothing. I almost laughed. Don't insult both of us. He looked down. I was angry. At what? At needing you. He said there it was, not love, not temptation, not even Sophia need. He had needed me and hated me for it. Every dollar I gave him made him feel smaller. Every room I opened for him became proof he could not open it himself. Instead of leaving or growing, he punished the person who made his life possible. So you made me smaller, I said. He closed his eyes. I don't know how to fix this. You don't. He opened them. You don't fix it, I said. You live with it. His face broke then, not prettily, not in a way that healed anything. He looked suddenly like a man standing outside a house he had burned, wondering why the rooms would not return because he was cold. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. You lost me by inches, I said. The dinner only let me see the distance. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. The space between us was small, final. His hand dropped. I turned and walked back to the conference table. The papers were ready. My signature looked steady. Claire Winslow, no heart. When I finished, Gillian gathered the documents. We'll file today. Evan watched me cap the pen. Claire, he said. I looked at him one last time as his wife. No, I said, not angry, not loud, just no. That evening I returned to Alder Room alone. Nora met me in the dining room. The tables had been reset for another event, fresh linen, new flowers, no trace of Harlow voices. Do you want the office? She asked. Yes. My mother's office smelled faintly of paper, lemon polish and the cedar drawer liners she loved. I sat at her desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside were old menus, a fountain pen and a small velvet box I had not seen in years. My mother's wedding ring. She had stopped wearing it after my father's second affair, not because she divorced him immediately, but because, as she told me once, a ring is not a leash, Claire, it is a symbol. When the symbol lies, put it down. I took off my own ring. The skin underneath was pale. I placed it beside hers, not inside the same box, beside it. Different women, different endings, same lesson, learned late but learned. My phone buzzed, a message from Evan. I'm outside Alder, please 5 minutes. I looked at Nora through the open office door. She had already seen the front camera. Do you want him removed? She asked. I thought about it, then I shook my head. Not yet, I said. Let him stand there. Evan stood outside Alder room for 47 minutes. I know because Nora logged it, not for drama. For security records. He arrived at 7:11 p.m. wearing the same coat from the legal meeting, hair damp from rain, phone in hand. He did not shout, he did not pound the door, he stood under the gold sign my mother had designed and called me 7 times. I did not answer. At 7:32 Margaret arrived. That surprised me. She stepped out of a black car with no driver service logo. For the first time since I had known her, she looked underdressed for the occasion. No pearls, no perfect coat, just a grey wrap, wet at the shoulders, face drawn tight with exhaustion. She spoke to Evan outside. The camera had no audio, but body language has its own subtitles. She blamed him, he defended himself. She pointed toward the restaurant. He shook his head. She covered her face. Then she came inside. Nora looked at me. Mrs. Harlow is asking to speak with you. I sat at my mother's desk, fingers resting on the drawer where my ring now lay. Around me were boxes of documents, old menus, and the quiet machinery of a life returning to its owner. Send her up, I said. Margaret entered the office as if stepping into a church where she was not sure she believed. Her eyes went first to my mother's portrait. People always looked at Eleanor Winslow before looking at me in that room. My mother had that effect even in oil paint. Claire, Margaret said. Margaret. She glanced at the chair across from me. I did not invite her to sit. After a moment, she sat anyway. Some habits die hard. I came to ask you to reconsider releasing anything else. She said. There it was, not apology, containment. I leaned back. Gillian has everything. I know, that is why I'm here. Then speak to Gillian. I'm speaking as family. You threatened to release a private recording of me grieving my dead mother. Her face tightened. I was desperate. No, you were confident. She looked down. That landed. Desperation pleads, confidence threatens. Margaret twisted her hands together. I noticed then that she was not wearing her large diamond ring, the one Richard bought after a business comeback years ago. Maybe she had taken it off, maybe it was being appraised. I did not ask. I did wrong, she said finally. The words were stiff, but they existed. Yes, I thought. Protecting Evan meant protecting all of us. No, I said. You thought protecting Evan meant using me. Her eyes lifted, wet and angry. You have no idea what it is like to watch a family name collapse. I watched my mother die and my husband record the aftermath. She flinched for once. Margaret had no polished answer. Outside, thunder rolled softly over the city. She said, Richard is speaking to the board. Good. He may testify that Evan concealed debt discussions. Also good. Her mouth trembled. My son may lose everything. I looked at her for a long moment. Margaret, he tried to take everything quietly first. She closed her eyes. I let the silence sit. I was no longer interested in softening it. When she opened them again, she looked older than she had at the dinner. Not destroyed, just revealed. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing. That can't be true. It is. Money. No, a public apology. If Gillian advises it. Her laugh was small and bitter. Always Gillian. Yes, that is what happens when family becomes unsafe. Professionals enter the room. She absorbed that. Then she whispered. I did like you, you know. That hurt more than I expected. I believed her. Maybe Margaret's version of liking had required my usefulness, but perhaps within that warped frame she had felt affection. She liked the daughter-in-law who remembered birthdays, funded dinners, made her son look successful, and never forced her to choose between truth and comfort. You liked me seated properly, I said. You did not defend me by the kitchen door. Her face crumpled for half a second before she forced it back into shape. No, she said. I did not. That was the closest Margaret Harlow came to honesty. I stood. She stood too, slower. I won't ask you to forgive him, she said. I won't ask you to forgive me. Good. She looked toward the window. Evan was still visible below, a dark figure under the sign. He keeps saying he can fix it, she said. He can't. I know. That surprised me. She turned back. I didn't know that. Until last night. What changed? Margaret looked at my mother's portrait again. He blamed Sophia in the car, then me, then Richard, then you, then the board, then the server, not once himself. I said nothing. He was a boy like that. She continued softly. I called it confidence, Richard called it ambition. Maybe it was only hunger. I thought of Evan saying he had been angry at needing me. Hunger is not love, I said. No, Margaret said. It is not. She left without asking to see Evan from the office. Window, that was her first boundary, too late to help me but perhaps not too late to hurt him in a way truth required. At 8:06 Evan entered the lobby. Nora called up. He says he will not leave unless he sees you. Tell him he has 2 minutes in the front dining room, security present. Are you sure? Yes. I went downstairs. The restaurant was closed to the public that night, not because of Evan, because I had reserved it, not for a grand event, not a revenge dinner for staff my mother used to host. One closed-door meal every winter for the people who kept order alive, chefs, servers, cleaners, managers, bookkeepers, dishwashers, security. After she died, I stopped attending. It hurt too much to sit in her chair. Tonight, the kitchen was preparing short ribs, roasted carrots, warm bread, and the dark chocolate cakes with sugared violets, a real family dinner. Evan stood in the front dining room with rain on his coat. He looked at the table being set behind me. You're having dinner? Yes, with them. With the people who did not make me earn a chair. He flinched. Security stood near the host stand. Nora remained close enough to hear. I did not care. Privacy had protected Evan long enough. I signed. He said, I know. Grant sent the papers. I know. The board wants my resignation. I know. Sophia is threatening to sue me. That sounds between you and Sophia. His mouth tightened. My father won't speak to me. I said nothing. My mother left the house. That I had not known. He saw it and almost smiled as if he had finally brought me news I could feel. She went to Blair's. Richard is staying in the guest room. Everything is falling apart. Evan. He stopped. Why are you telling me? His eyes filled. Because you're my wife. No, I said. He looked down at my left hand. The ring was gone. His face changed. It was not surprise he had known, but seeing the empty finger made knowledge physical. Where is it? In my mother's office. He swallowed. Can I have one chance to explain? You have explained in emails, in receipts, in recordings, in where you placed me. I was ashamed, he said, of needing you, of everyone knowing I married up, of your brothers looking at me like I was temporary. They were right. He closed his eyes as if I had struck him. I felt no pleasure in it. That was another surprise. The revenge had been satisfying when it restored truth. His pain alone did nothing for me. He opened his eyes. Did you ever love me? Yes. That hurt him more than no. I loved you. I said, I chose you, I protected you, I made room for you in every part of my life. You mistook my room for weakness. I know that now. No, I said, you know the cost now. That is not the same thing. His tears spilled. Then quietly he looked embarrassed by them, which told me he had learned nothing useful from my grief. If I had seated you beside me, he whispered, would you have stayed? I thought about lying. A simple no would have made me look stronger, but truth had brought me this far. I owed myself no performance. Maybe longer, I said, and that is the part that scares me. He looked up. If you had hidden it better, I might have kept making excuses. I might have signed something eventually. I might have spent years confusing endurance with love. So no, Evan, I'm not grateful for what you did, but I am grateful it was visible enough to end me, end you, the version of me who would have stayed. The kitchen doors opened. Warm air moved into the dining room. For the first time it did not feel like an insult. It smelled like bread and rosemary and work done honestly. Nora approached. Claire, dinner is ready. I nodded. Evan looked past me. Can we talk after? No. Tomorrow? No. Through Gillian? Yes. His face crumpled again. That's all. That's all. Security opened the front door. Rain hissed on the sidewalk outside. Evan did not move at first. Then he stepped toward the door slowly, like a man walking out of a room where he had expected to be forgiven by architecture itself. At the threshold he turned. Claire, I waited. I'm sorry. The words came too late to be a key. I know, I said. Then Nora closed the door. For a moment everyone in the dining room pretended not to have heard. The staff were kind like that. They understood dignity sometimes needed people to look away. Then Daniel, the young server who had told the truth, approached with a small smile. Ms. Winslow, he said, where would you like to sit? I looked at the long table. My brothers had arrived while I spoke to Evan, Miles stood near the far end, talking quietly with Owen. Theo was already trying to charm the pastry chef into giving him a second dessert and failing. Nora watched me from beside my mother's old chair. The head of the table waited, not because I was owed worship, because I was done exiling myself from my own life. There, I said. I sat at the head of the table. No one made a speech at first. Plates were passed, bread was torn by hand, Theo burned his fingers and cursed, Nora laughed, Daniel poured wine with ceremonial seriousness, Owen asked the sous chef for the carrot recipe and was told no. Miles sat to my right, not because I needed guarding, but because he was my brother and that was where he wanted to be. Halfway through dinner, Nora brought out a small framed photograph, my mother in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, laughing at something off camera. I found it in storage. Nora said, thought you might want it upstairs. I touched the frame. My mother had built rooms where people came to be seen. I had let my marriage teach me to hide in them. That was not her legacy, it was not mine either. After dessert, I went upstairs alone and placed the photograph beside her portrait. Then I opened the drawer. My wedding ring lay beside hers. I picked mine up one last time. It was beautiful. Evan had chosen it carefully, or so I once thought. Maybe he had. Maybe not every memory needed to become false for the ending to be true. I placed the ring in a plain envelope, sealed it, and wrote one word on the front, closed. Then I put it back in the drawer. My phone buzzed with an email from Gillian, filing confirmed. I read it twice, not because I doubted it, because I wanted to remember the exact second my name became mine again. Downstairs, laughter rose from the dining room outside. The rain had stopped. Through the office window, I could see the sidewalk under the alder sign empty now. No Evan, no Sophia, no Harlow waiting for me to open a door I had already locked. I turned off the office light and went back to dinner. My seat stayed mine.